Buzz. He clenched his fists and let out a furious roar. Ha! The super-eternal ancient transformation instantly converged. In a flash, he charged forward. Not giving his opponent any time to prepare, he landed a punch on the fat man's face, then followed up with a knee strike. Hand-to-hand combat. Fists and feet combined. Driven by his immense divine power, he was practically ravaging his opponent. This scene also left Wuxia and the others deeply shaken. After Jian Wushuang executed the super-eternal ancient transformation, his divine power reached 80 million. He relentlessly pummeled the fat metallic life form. From the small island, they fought up into the sky. Onlookers saw him gaining the upper hand, but he knew that his attacks just felt like hitting cotton. They were ineffective. The fat metallic life form, after taking another punch, didn't even retreat, only tilting its neck slightly before turning back to coldly stare at Jian Wushuang with a sneer. Seeing the taunting look in his opponent's eyes, Jian Wushuang grew anxious. He concentrated a blue beam of light in his hands and blasted it towards his opponent's head. Boom! The powerful explosion shook the lake, causing water vapor to fill the air. But as soon as the mist cleared, the fat metallic life form remained completely unscathed. Now it's my turn. The metallic life form charged headfirst at Jian Wushuang's face. Bang! This impact directly cracked Jian Wushuang's divine body. Moreover, he could feel the metallic life form getting even stronger. For a moment, he was no longer in the advantageous position. Origin Source Dao Arena. He clenched his fists again, unleashing more divine power. After fighting for so long, his divine power had dropped to 75 million. With the reactivation of the Origin Source Dao Arena, his divine power surged to around 85 million. Clang! The longer he fought, the more he felt something was off. He drew the Wanjia sword, aiming for a swift victory. No more holding back. Space-time reincarnation. Sword shadows filled the sky. Buzz! A massive sword shadow formed, slashing towards the metallic life form. Facing the sword shadow, the fat metallic life form widened its eyes in delight. This is the sword strike I've been waiting for. He extended his hands, revealing a miniature black hole in his palms. The powerful origin source energy from temporal reincarnation was completely absorbed by the black hole. At this point, Jian Wushuang was starting to weaken, but the metallic life form's strength had significantly increased. Its divine power had reached 80 million. It flew and knocked Jian Wushuang off the small island, sending him plunging into the lake. The onlookers below also noticed something was wrong. This isn't right. Did Brother Wushuang not use the Origin Source Dao Arena? Wuxia was puzzled, sensing Jian Wushuang's apparent weakness. At this moment, Divine Wood King recalled the time when Jian Wushuang had saved him and exclaimed, "No, Wushuang was ambushed earlier. He was definitely hit by a poison needle." What poisoned needle? Hu Qing and the others looked over simultaneously. I don't know, but once the poison needle enters the divine body, it weakens divine power. I was ambushed this way and couldn't fight back for years. Upon hearing this, Elder Blue became solemn and shouted, "Stop watching and get ready to save Jian Wushuang." There was no doubt that Jian Wushuang had been struck by the poison needle. However, Jian Wushuang's divine body was strong, and he had been suppressing the poison. Unfortunately, during the battle, the suppression weakened, allowing the poison to take effect. Splash! As they were about to act, the metallic life form Gallo blocked their way. "Your opponent is me." But Blue ignored him, unleashing his divine power, which soared beyond 70 million, and roared, "Get out of my way!" Buzz! He fired a blast of energy, attempting to eliminate Gallo. But the attack was easily absorbed by the black hole in Gallo's hand. Don't use divine power attacks. Engage in hand-to-hand combat. Everyone restrained their divine power and advanced again. But Hu Qing remained still. "You guys hold him off. I'll go save Brother Wushuang." Hearing this, Wuxia hesitated for a moment and anxiously said, "The metallic life form above is stronger. Let's deal with this old man first and then go save Wushuang together." That metal life form was so powerful, Its divine power had reached 80 million. They were not a match for it. Upon hearing this, Hu Qing shook his head. Leave it to me. As soon as he finished speaking, his divine power suddenly surged. He had seen everything that had just happened. Jian Wushuang could have killed the metal life form. Unfortunately, his divine power had been weakened and then absorbed by the metal life form. That was why he couldn't defeat it. However, Hu Qing's divine power was not weakened. Future transformation. Hu Qing roared, and a golden light exploded. Everyone was dumbfounded. Future self? Future transformation. You broke through? Wuxia was stunned. Hu Qing's divine power had now exceeded 90 million. In a flash, he rushed into the sky. At this moment, Jian Wushuang was being ravaged by the metal life form. His divine body had almost been completely absorbed by the opponent. Even the super-eternal ancient transformation could no longer be maintained. Now your opponent is me. Hu Qing charged forward, holding a black long staff that had appeared in his hand, and with one strike, he sent the metal life form flying. With his other hand, he grabbed the weakened Jian Wushuang. This blow had been too great for Jian Wushuang. He had originally thought it would be a piece of cake, but he hadn't expected things to turn out this way. Weakly, he looked at Hu Qing and said, Be careful of him absorbing divine power. Don't worry. Hu Qing nodded and shouted to the divine Wood King below. Take him back to the Immortal Temple first. Seeing this, Divine Wood King immediately stepped forward to catch Jian Wushuang. Before losing consciousness, Jian Wushuang took out the artifact, Phantom Void. Then he passed out. On the ground, Blue, seeing Hu Qing's outburst, felt assured. He no longer hid anything and clenched his fists with a furious roar. His divine power directly surpassed 80 million. Phew! Wuxia took a deep breath. He hadn't expected Elder Blue to be so powerful. He's mine. Elder Blue pointed at the metal life form, Gallo. In a flash, he disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared, he was already behind Gallo. With one punch, he knocked off Gallo's tall hat. Gallo hadn't even reacted, not knowing how to defend himself, but Elder Blue chopped off one of his arms with a hand blade. In the crack of the arm, numerous small metal parts appeared, intricately designed. Gallo, holding his severed arm, quickly retreated. Calculation error. How can a Perungia clan member be so powerful? He had come from the southern spacetime, following a message from Miluo. He had created that fat metal life form based on his opponent. Then he adjusted his own divine power accordingly. Even when they reached the Realm King continent, they were considered the ultimate demigod powerhouses. According to calculations, no matter how strong Jian Wushuang was, he wouldn't reach the level of demigod. But in the recent battle, he found Jian Wushuang's strength had reached an unimaginable level. Fortunately, he had prepared in advance, with the poison that weakened divine power. But he hadn't accounted for Jian Wushuang's companions being so strong. At the time in the Wanlu Divine Tree, Miluo had not seen Wuxia and Hu Qing. These two were variables. In fact, the greatest danger besides Jian Wushuang was Divine Wood King. However, in this battle, Divine Wood King did not perform impressively. On the contrary, as soon as he descended, he severely injured the opponent. What he did not anticipate was Hu Qing. And now Elder Blue had also become so powerful. He could suppress him with just a wave of his hand. Gallo's divine power was only 75 million. Retreat. With a thought, he took out a compass. Number 20. Don't get entangled in the battle. Retreat first. He had failed. This time his plan had failed. But this did not mean that Miluo's revenge plan would fail. At this moment, 3 metallic lifeforms had also arrived in the northern city territory. Not far away at Gallo's speed, he could reach the opponent within an hour. Go! Without any hesitation, he crushed the compass. A spatial exchange occurred. On the originally desolate island, a simple house appeared in an instant, while Gallo disappeared from the original spot. What happened? Wu Li was startled. Elder Blue, however, understood immediately and shouted angrily, It's a spatial exchange. He hasn't run far. Split up and chase him. Why don't we deal with that fat guy first? Wuxia pointed at the battle in the sky. At this moment, Hu Qing was fighting against the abandoned metallic lifeform. After creating a new peak secret technique, Hu Qing's future transformation had almost doubled. His divine power had reached 90 million. He continuously suppressed the metallic lifeform. I'll help you. Elder Blue's figure flashed as he intended to help Hu Qing deal with the opponent first. Hu Qing kicked the metallic life form away and turned his head to say, "No need. You guys go chase that person. I will catch up with you shortly." Alone. Elder Blue hesitated for a moment but then agreed. This time, the strength of the metallic lifeforms had exceeded their expectations. They had to eradicate them completely and couldn't let the opponent escape. Gallo is already injured. Let's split up and chase him. All right. Elder Blue, Wuxia, and Wu Li split up and went in different directions. Only Hu Qing was left to fight the strongest metallic lifeform. Seeing that the others had left, Hu Qing's aura shook again. Let's see whether you absorb more or explode more. Buzz. He abandoned the long staff and gathered divine power in both hands. In an instant, his power broke through 90 million. The vast divine power gathered in his hands, forming a golden light beam. Ha! Boom! The metallic life form that had fallen to the ground looked up and saw the incoming divine power beam, immediately rejoicing. It stretched out its hands and began to absorb it. The powerful divine power continuously poured into the metallic life form. Soon, the metallic life form's power broke through 90 million, reaching the same level as Hu Qing. But Hu Qing did not intend to stop and continued to increase his divine power. The future transformation had been pushed to its limit. The divine power kept gathering. 93 million, 94 million, 95.5 million. Ah! This time, the metallic life form couldn't hold on any longer. Its limit was 90 million. The subsequent power completely pushed it to its limit. It was overfed. Seeing the opportunity, Hu Qing moved his mind, and the silver long staff flew out from behind. Following the beam of light, it shot straight at the metallic lifeform. The long staff pierced through the metallic lifeform's divine body along with the beam of light. Now's the time. Hu Qing increased his divine power again. Boom! The metallic lifeform that pierced through the divine body could no longer resist. Its body was shattered by the beam of light, and its limbs turned to ashes. Only a round head remained, falling to the ground. Hu Qing glanced at it, and a beam of energy shot out, obliterating the metallic head as well. With a thought, he scanned the entire northern town territory. He quickly discovered 3 powerful auras converging together. In a flash, he sped towards that direction. Within the territory, the battles raged on wave after wave. However, Jian Wushuang had only participated in the initial battle and then lay down afterward. At this moment, he was in the Immortal Temple, receiving treatment from Danbao. Through the crystal ball, Divine Wood King watched the troubles encountered by Elder Blue and the others. Gallo was already severely injured, with little combat strength left. But their crisis had only just begun. 2 familiar faces appeared in Northern City. There was also a burly figure, faceless, entirely pitch black, like a puppet, resembling a rudimentary metallic life form. Divine Wood King stared at the crystal ball, exclaiming, "It's incredible that the owner of the pyramid could create such powerful life forms." The Realm King said that this crisis is no less threatening than the extinction. Danbao bowed his head and sighed. "I wonder if we can hold them off." "How much longer to restore Jian Wushuang?" Divine Wood King inquired. With only Hu Qing alone, it might not be enough. He had killed 1 metallic life form and severely injured another. But now 3 more metallic life forms had appeared. They seemed stronger than the fat one that was killed. It would be very difficult to hold them off. Danbao gathered divine life force with both hands, continually restoring Jian Wushuang. "It will take a day. His divine body is too severely damaged." Divine Wood King frowned, clenching his fists, and said, "Give me a ball of life force. I need to save them." But Danbao hesitated. "We don't have time. Do you want to watch them die? Divine Wood King took out the artifact Illusory Sky and said, With Illusory Sky, I can take them and escape. Only then did Danbao nod in agreement, gathering 2 massive balls of life force and handing them to Divine Wood King. Be careful, Divine Wood King nodded. Within Northern City, in a narrow alley, Elder Blue and the others had cornered Gallo, as well as the newly appeared 3 metallic lifeforms. This made Elder Blue pause for a moment. He hadn't expected 3 more to appear. The metallic lifeforms had no aura, so he couldn't gauge their strength. But he was confident, because he had obtained the Dragon God treasure from Divine Wood King when he ascended. Buzz, clenching his fists, his divine power surged to 80 million. Today you won't escape. Wu Li and Wu Zhuo also erupted together, their divine power breaking 70 million. 3 terrifying auras rose within the town. At this moment, Hu Qing descended with a boom. He landed in front of everyone. Slowly turning, he looked at Gallo. These are your helpers? Hu Qing's eyes held battle intent. Jian Wushuang had fallen, and he had to take on everything alone. Hearing this, Gallo looked tense. He knew his subordinates must have been killed. Impressive! A clear voice rang out. A short-haired girl among the metallic lifeforms stepped forward, clapping her hands, and said, Such a spectacular moment. Why isn't Jian Wushuang here? Her target was Jian Wushuang. She had no interest in these people before her. If a battle was necessary, she would oblige, but not now. Your opponent is me. Hu Qing pointed at himself with his thumb and said, But you no longer have a chance to see Jian Wushuang. Buzz. His divine power surged, instantly reaching its peak. Seeing this, Gallo hurriedly urged, Lan Yen, go kill them. Behind the short-haired girl stood a short-haired boy, his gaze cold. He was very disdainful of Gallo's command. With a frown, he said, Lord Gallo, it seems you are not needed here. What do you mean by that? Gallo took half a step back, also feeling that the 3 metal lifeforms created by Miluo had problematic personalities. Moreover, with Miluo already fallen, there was no way to control these 3. Swish! The short-haired boy moved swiftly, appearing directly behind Gallo. With a single hand chop, he instantly decapitated Gallo. The round head rolled to Hu Qing's feet. Even without a body, Gallo did not truly perish. His eyes shifted, and he began to curse. You traitors, I am Miluo's elder brother. How dare you attack me? This scene stunned Hu Qing and his companions. They did not expect the metal lifeforms to engage in infighting. For a moment, they were all dumbfounded. The short-haired boy, Lan Yen, struck again, crushing Gallo's head underfoot. Noisy! The short-haired girl frowned and complained, Why did you have to step on him? The 2 exchanged words as if Gallo's death was of no consequence. As for the burly figure behind them, he remained silent throughout, merely following behind Lan Yen and Lan Shui. Now it's your turn. The girl, Lan Shui, pointed at Hu Qing, then glanced at Wu Li and the others, saying, All of you, attack together. We're in a hurry. Wu Li observed the situation and felt they no longer had the advantage. He stepped forward and asked, Aren't you guys with Gallo? This old guy has nothing to do with us. Lan Yen, standing behind, shook his head casually. If you're not with Gallo, why are you still hunting Jian Wushuang? This confused him even more. According to Gallo, he was avenging Miluo by creating Lan Yen and Lan Shui. Lan Yen and Lan Shui were also avenging Miluo. Now, the 2 groups were infighting. It was indeed puzzling. Lan Shui chuckled and explained, Hunting Jian Wushuang is our mission from creation. If we kill him, we'll be free. Of course, we must do it. With these words, there was no room for negotiation. Wu Li's face darkened as he retreated. Hu Qing frowned, clenched his fists, and attacked. He threw a punch, but Lan Shui easily dodged it. In an instant, she sidestepped and countered with an elbow strike, knocking Hu Qing aside. The combined attack from Wu Li and Wu Zhuo was also easily thwarted by Lan Shui. With a single kick each, they were sent to join Hu Qing. Boom! Half of the northern city was destroyed. Divine Wood King, controlling the illusory sky divine artifact, had just arrived and was dumbfounded. He had only left for a moment and returned to find the opponents had changed. Gallo and that fat guy were gone. 3 new metal life forms had appeared. Moreover, they were even stronger. Huqing and the others attacked again, but the metal life forms didn't even use their divine power absorption techniques, yet still left the 3 without the strength to fight back. Seeing this, Divine Wood King in the air dared not move recklessly. The newly appeared 3 special life forms first attacked their own, killing Gallo. Then the cold girl began to fight Huqing and the others. To call it a fight was an overstatement. It was a one-sided beating. Huqing, with his 90 million divine power, stood no chance against them. As for Blue and Wu Li, they fared even worse. Boom! The newly rebuilt northern city was half destroyed in an instant. Huqing crawled out of the rubble, looking incredulously at the cold girl before him, feeling fear for the first time. Such fear had never occurred before. He never imagined that, after his breakthrough, he would be so vulnerable. Previously, he had taken on Jian Wushuang's burden and slain metal life forms. He thought this threat had ended. Unexpectedly, this was just the beginning. Too weak. I wonder if that Jian Wushuang will give us some surprises. The aloof boy stood aside, glancing at Huqing and the others with disinterest, and reminded the cold girl Lan Shui, "Hurry up and finish this." He couldn't help but feel a bit itchy to join the fight as he watched. Unfortunately, Huqing and the others were not strong enough to put up a good fight. He could only think of going to deal with Jian Wushuang. Let's end this. The cold young girl raised the corners of her mouth, and her hands suddenly converged, a burst of red light flashing out. Buzz! The powerful divine power made the entire northern city tremble. Huqing's face changed, and he turned to shout at Wu Li, "Quick! Get out of the way!" After saying that, he flashed to Blue's side. At this moment, Blue had already lost the ability to move. Huqing grabbed Blue with one hand and wanted to retreat. But the red light had already swept over the ground and the void. There was no escape. In the red glow, Huqing showed a look of despair. Boom! Boom! After the huge noise, the entire northern city was completely reduced to ruins. The proud young man Lan Yen and the black metal life form both leaped and hovered in the sky. Below, the cold young girl Lan Shui's clothes were only slightly tattered, but her aura remained unchanged, not having decreased her divine power due to the previous attack. There's still a faint aura. Upon hearing this, Lan Shui wanted to strike again. But Lan Yen stopped her. Forget it. These cultivators are too weak. No need to kill them. It's better to leave them. Maybe they will fight with Jian Wushuang against us, and that will be interesting. Good idea. Lan Shui raised her head and blinked, thinking it was very reliable. Divine Wood King in the sky heard all this, his face turning dark, and he roared, "You won't succeed. When Jian Wushuang arrives, you will all be doomed." Humph! Lan Shui turned her head and looked at Divine Wood King, calmly saying, "When Jian Wushuang comes, whether we will be doomed is uncertain, but it's very easy to doom you now." As soon as these words came out, Divine Wood King's face changed dramatically. After hesitating for a moment, he still unleashed all his divine power. The green aura around him surged suddenly, arcs of electricity flickering. Then let's try. He couldn't escape and could only fight. Lan Shui slowly walked towards him, extending a palm, and asked in surprise, "You're not afraid of death?" She was a bit curious why Divine Wood King would jump out to stop her. Afraid? Divine Wood King was very afraid of death. But what could he do? "All right, I'll spare your life." Lan Shui withdrew her palm, her tone indifferent. Just this. Divine Wood King was stunned for a moment, thinking the other party looked down on him, not even bothering to strike. He shouted, "What exactly do you want?" They clearly could kill them all but didn't go for the kill. Lan Shui heard this, turned her head to glance at Divine Wood King, and said, "For revenge. It's that simple. I hope when we meet Jian Wushuang you will be present. Don't let us down." After speaking, he followed Lan Yen and left. Their destination was the star field of the gods. Divine Wood King watched their figures recede into the distance, his heart a mixture of emotions. This time they truly faced a great crisis. There was no room for resistance. Even the powerful Hu Qing couldn't last a quarter of an hour in the enemy's hands. No matter how strong Jian Wushuang was, how much stronger could he possibly be? In the end, he was just an eighth tribulation. Currently, 3 special beings already possessed the combat power of a universe god. They were far from being their opponents. It wasn't until the metal beings disappeared from sight that Divine Wood King snapped back to reality and hurriedly went to find Hu Qing and the others. Among the rubble, he found Hu Qing and the others. Using his thought power, he enveloped everyone and activated the divine artifact, Illusory Sky, tearing through space-time and heading directly towards the star field of the gods. The Immortal Temple. After bringing everyone back, Danbao quickly healed Hu Qing and the others. At this moment, they were all sitting cross-legged atop the Immortal Temple, contemplating how to face the battle. Hu Qing was extremely despondent. His fighting spirit had waned significantly. The future self. It was his ultimate secret technique. The future transformation was a super-secret technique he could rely on even when facing universe gods. Yet it was useless against the metal beings. He was brutally killed. He didn't even have a chance to fight back. For a while, he hadn't completely recovered from the shock. This blow was not only huge for Hu Qing but for the others as well. Divine Wood King was utterly convinced. He couldn't keep up with Hu Qing and Jian Wushuang's pace, and facing the metal beings was even more impossible. In contrast, Wu Li, still in the mood to joke, said, "Don't worry, with Brother Wushuang here, we won't lose. I'm not exaggerating. Back then, when I teamed up with Brother Wushuang, this old Brother Divine Wood King can testify it was extremely dangerous. Brother Wushuang was just an emperor then and dared to fight Gula. Now, what's a mere metal being? Right?" At this moment, Wuzu also spoke. "I met Brother Wushuang early on too. When he was just a Dao Lord, he was already defeating the peak-level experts. Now, as an 8th tribulation, beating a universe god shouldn't be a problem." The optimistic words of the two lightened the atmosphere a bit. But just then, a familiar voice was heard. "I can't win." Everyone turned towards the source of the voice. It was Jian Wushuang. He had fully recovered, but the gap in divine power was insurmountable. Hu Qing had been defeated miserably. If he went, it would also be a death sentence. The key was that he had no confidence in winning now. "Brother Wushuang! Brother Wushuang! Jian Wushuang!" Everyone spoke up. "This time, I dragged you all down," Jian Wushuang said helplessly. "I didn't expect these metal beings to be so powerful, making us all look so pathetic." Hu Qing shook his head and said, "Don't say that. We faced this together. If we hadn't killed the metal being back then, there would be no god of life, and we wouldn't be where we are now." Divine Wood King understood this best because he had just been a scattered tribulation, and now he was a 9th tribulation universe master. So he was most qualified to understand and share the burden. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up as he turned to Danbao and said, "I've already contacted the prophet. You can go to the prophet to hide. I will use the divine artifact, Illusory Sky, to lead them away to a distant star field." He had contacted the prophet, and Hu Qing and the others could go there and even seek advice from the prophet. After all, the metal beings were not targeting them. Danbao took a deep breath at his words but did not nod in agreement. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "I have a way to defeat the metal beings." Everyone was taken aback, and Bruce frowned as if he had thought of something. "Fusion." Upon hearing this, Wuzu became excited. "You're saying let Brother Wushuang and Hu Qing fuse. This is a good idea. As long as Jian Wushuang appears, even the gods can't stop us." After witnessing Jian Wushuang's power, Wuzu was greatly influenced. At that time, Jian Wushuang and Hu Qing had only a fraction of their divine power, but after fusing, they could rival a universe god. They were much stronger than they were now. Now, both Hu Qing and Jian Wushuang had around 90 million divine power. If they fused, Wouldn't they be unstoppable across the entire Realm King continent? Bruce shook his head and explained, not the fusion created by the Realm King god, but our Palunga fusion. What? This time, Jian Wushuang was also surprised and asked, could it be that there are also your people on the Realm King continent? Danbao shook his head. I will fuse with Elder Blue. He and Blue could still fuse once more, and it was the last fusion of the Palunga race. Of course, it wasn't like the Elder's fusion. It was a physical fusion. Simply put, Danbao would abandon the body of the god of life, leaving only a consciousness similar to the Realm King. Blue had absorbed the god of life and already possessed 80 million units of divine power. With the integration of Danbao, he could potentially become a universe god directly, avoiding the hassle of undergoing a tribulation. Absolutely not. This time, it wasn't just Jian Wushuang who opposed the idea. Wu Li and Divine Wood King also voiced their objections. Wu Li had always stayed in the Immortal Temple and had developed a bond with Danbao over time. Divine Wood King had received the greatest benefits and couldn't bear to see another sacrifice made for them. There's no other way, Danbao said with a wry smile. Only by merging with Blue do we have a chance to defeat the metallic life forms. Don't worry, I won't truly perish. Like the Realm King, I'll become a consciousness. But I won't be able to restore your divine power anymore. Jian Wushuang slowly walked over. He didn't want to burden Danbao any longer. Patting Danbao's shoulder, he said, I still have room to improve. It's not certain that I'll lose. But, Danbao looked up at him, determination in his eyes. No buts. Jian Wushuang was even more resolute. He couldn't watch his companions sacrifice themselves anymore. They had been lucky this time, or perhaps the metallic life forms had shown erratic behavior and didn't strike lethally. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Hu Qing and others had almost fallen. He couldn't afford to take that risk again. Just then, Realm King descended. Seeing everyone present, he sighed in relief. Jian Wushuang, come with me. Realm King beckoned. The Great Realm King wants to see you. Hearing that the Great Realm King summoned them, everyone was stunned. The Great Realm King was a figure comparable to Zamasu, one of the top figures on the Realm God continent. He wanted to meet them. It seemed the Realm King had pleaded on their behalf, finding a way to break the impasse. Otherwise, continuing to train and chase the metallic life forms under the current circumstances would be meaningless. I'm not going, Blue said, remaining in place and glancing at Danbao. Danbao, as the god of life, couldn't easily leave the temple, which also had its dangers. As a divine envoy, he couldn't leave either, to stay behind and protect the Tao. The Realm King naturally had no objections. He looked at Jian Wushuang and said, don't be anxious. The metal life forms are not terrifying. The real terrifying opponent has yet to appear. Who? Jian Wushuang was stunned for a moment and then asked, is it Zamasu? Now that the metal life forms had the combat power of universe gods, if they weren't terrifying, he truly didn't know who the opponent could be. The Realm King shook his head and replied, it's Shilu. Shilu. Wu's eyes widened as he said, how strong can he be? How long has it been since he left the northern spacetime? He can't be stronger than the metal life forms, can he? Hu Qing was also somewhat shocked. He hadn't expected there to be an opponent stronger than the metal life forms. This put considerable pressure on them. Rest assured, this time the Great Realm King will personally guide you and transform your divine bodies. Once you emerge after some time, dealing with these metal life forms won't be an issue. However, Shilu poses a greater threat. The outcome will depend on your training results with the Great Realm King. The Realm King boosted everyone's morale. There was no need to be downcast. Upon hearing this, Wu Li's face was ecstatic. Transforming their divine bodies and guiding their cultivation was immensely important. Without this threat, they might never see someone like the Great Realm King in their lifetime. They had to seize this opportunity. Let's go. With a wave of his hand, the Realm King casually tore through the space of the star field of the gods. Being the Realm King, he naturally had the ability to traverse spacetime. Even without combat power, his own realm was still intact. Lord Realm King, those metal life forms won't find the Immortal Temple, right? Jian Wushuang was somewhat worried about the safety of Danbao and others. Rest assured, this is the star field of the gods. Those metal life forms won't have the chance to cause trouble here. Just focus on your cultivation. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly, then followed the Realm King and left. After entering the rift, the Realm King left behind an avatar. Blue. He looked at Blue and Danbao below, his eyes revealing worry. The reason for taking Jian Wushuang and the others away first was to avoid affecting their cultivation. Lord Realm King. Danbao's face was calm as he said, "Tell me what needs to be done." He had already accepted it calmly. Although he was merely the god of life, he was also a god of time and space, with a sense of foreboding. Danbao, I have a task for Blue. This task is very dangerous. With Blue's current strength, he would be walking to his death. The Realm King's face was somewhat somber. Danbao had already sensed it and said calmly, "Is it to stop the metal life forms?" "Yes." The Realm King nodded. Blue stood silently on the side. At this moment, he didn't know what to say. He only hated his insufficient strength. Even before the metal life forms appeared, he had a premonition. At that time, he trained desperately, raising his divine power to over 80 million. But he still couldn't solve the problem of the metal life forms. Now he could only be forced to merge with Danbao. Actually, it was more like he was unilaterally absorbing Danbao's divine flesh. This was the only way to quickly enhance his divine power. Blue had achieved his current accomplishments by merging with the entire Boron clan of strong practitioners, relying on the foundation he had laid at that time. But his potential was ultimately limited. He wasn't human, and his comprehension was average. Achieving the status of a universe god might be something he could never accomplish in his lifetime. However, after absorbing Danbao's divine avatar, his potential and comprehension could improve. He might even achieve the status of a universe god in one leap. The choice was now in Danbao's hands. Stopping the metal life forms isn't actually the goal. The Realm King didn't want Danbao to lose his body either, but he said helplessly, "It's to stop Shilu. To stop Shilu from devouring the metal life forms. If Shilu absorbs the metal life forms, even the Immortal Temple won't be able to stop him. The Great Realm King cannot intervene directly. By then, even the northern spacetime will be in danger." This was what he was worried about. Unfortunately, he no longer had his physical body. Otherwise, there would be no need for these juniors to come forward. The Realm King felt very guilty, but there was no other way. "Leave this to me." Danbao nodded and said, "Anyway, I don't have much use for my body." After a bit of self-consolation, he turned to Blue. "Let's begin." By now, the metal life forms had already entered the star field of the gods, and time was running out for them. Buzz! Danbao's body turned into golden light and merged with Blue. At this moment, his divine power began to change drastically. On the other side, Jian Wushuang and the others were brought to the small island where the Realm King resided. After descending, everyone waited patiently in place. Through the perception of karma, they were actually not far from the Immortal Temple. It would only take a quarter of an hour to reach the Immortal Temple by tearing through the void. However, for those metal life forms to come here was as difficult as ascending to heaven. Even Zamasu would find it challenging to forcibly attack this place. "You all wait here. I'll go in and greet them." After the Realm King finished speaking, he walked towards the wooden house on the island. At that moment, the door of the wooden house opened on its own, and an elderly blue-skinned man walked out. "Have you brought everyone?" "Yes, they are all here." There was no need to ask. The only one who could make the Northern Realm King show such respect was the Great Realm King. Jian Wushuang quickly cupped his hands and bowed, saying, "Greetings, Great Realm King." "Great Realm King." The others also bowed in unison. The Great Realm King only slightly nodded, glanced at everyone, and then said, "Each of you will have a chance to be guided, but only for 1 year. However, in the Time House you can train rapidly for 10,000 epochs. This means that after 5 years in the outside world, All of you can leave. Only one person could be guided at a time. 5 people would mean 5 years. Naturally, everyone had no objections and stood to the side, ready to follow instructions. Who will go first? The great realm king glanced at everyone. Hui Qing stepped forward at this moment and answered, I'll go first. All right, follow me. The great realm king led the way, and Hui Qing followed. The others then sat cross-legged on the spot and began to wait. The realm king stood aside, contemplating matters concerning the immortal temple. At this moment, Blue had completely absorbed Danbao's divine avatar, and a strong golden light burst from his body. I can't believe my power has reached this level. Blue could hardly believe it. His divine power had already surpassed 1 billion, and he had not yet used his full strength. As he slightly clenched his fist, the surrounding spacetime began to tremble, with small cracks appearing. Danbao watched all this and smiled. However, his figure was somewhat illusory now, similar to the Realm King, having lost his physical divine body. At least his origin source remained, allowing him to continue comprehending the true essence of life and improve the northern spacetime. This was what it looked like after losing the physical divine body. The metal lifeforms have just left Zilong Mountain and are at the edge of the star field of the gods. Blue, you only need to kill one of Lan Yen or Lan Shui immediately. As for that big black guy, don't worry about him. Kill one without mercy, and leave the rest alone. The Realm King carefully instructed. This was very important. As long as they killed a metal lifeform, Shilu's plan would not come to fruition. At this moment, Blue was extremely confident and said calmly, Rest assured, my lord, I will kill them all. With that, he slowly levitated into the air, signaled to the 2 of them, and his figure flashed out. The surrounding spacetime was instantly torn apart, and Blue disappeared into the void. Swish! A few breaths later, Blue appeared in a desolate pile of rubble, standing on a giant broken rock, waiting for the metal lifeforms to appear. He had now reached the level of a universe god, fully mastering the surrounding spacetime law rules, and naturally discovered the position of the metal lifeforms. Unlike before, he no longer needed to rely on their aura or use mental power to investigate. Now, he just needed to control spacetime and could immediately see everything around him. Boom! In just a moment, 3 figures appeared in front of Blue. It's you. The cold young girl frowned when she saw Blue, as she noticed that Blue's aura had changed, as if he were a different person. The aloof Lan Yen didn't put blue in his eyes at all, sneering. Defeated so quickly and recovered even faster. Are you in such a hurry to die? Tsk tisk. Blue moved his wrist, peeled off the heavy skin, and stared coldly at the 3 metal lifeforms, arrogantly saying, Are you all coming at once, or one by one? Hearing this, Lan Yen was first stunned, then laughed heartily while holding his stomach. Did Lan Shui just beat you silly? You still want to take on 3 of us at once. Why not try and find out? Blue assumed a stance, ready to attack at any moment. Fine, very good. This time I'll do it myself. Lan Shui, you and the big guy just watch. I will kill him personally. Lan Yan's arms trembled, his body slightly lowered, and his eyes became sharp. He seemed to be searching for Blue's flaws. Lan Shui saw the stances of the 2 and showed a curious expression, retreating to the distant mountains with the big guy Lan Tian, quietly waiting for the battle to erupt. Crack! The gravel fell with the gusts of wind. Before the stones even hit the ground, a huge aura shook the sky. Lan Yen and Blue struck simultaneously, fist to fist, leg to leg. The 2 immediately engaged in close combat. As soon as their divine powers clashed, Lan Yen was shaken back and exclaimed, No wonder you are so confident. You've reached the level of a universe god. But it's still not enough. As he spoke, he gathered energy waves in his hands and continuously blasted them towards Blue. Boom! The violent roar shattered the entire stone mountain. But Blue's figure had long since reached the sky, and he shouted, I'm here, you fool! As soon as the words fell, Lan Yen felt a strong impact from his chest before he could even look up. He was sent flying. Boom! He crashed through several mountain peaks before coming to a stop. Blue approached again, roaring, "Aha!" A golden light beam shot out from his hand, instantly striking the place where Lan Yen had fallen. The entire majestic mountain disappeared in an instant, completely pulverized. The majestic mountains in the divine realm were extremely hard. Though battles could damage them, to completely pulverize them like this required divine power exceeding 1,300,000,000. The battle between Blue and Lan Yen had only lasted as long as an incense stick, yet it had already caused such a commotion. Who? Blue took a deep breath. He did not sense Lan Yan's presence in the space-time he controlled, so he turned to Lan Shui and said, "I told you. You can all come at me together." In the distance, Lan Shui was initially stunned, then regained his composure, his lips curling up. "Finish Lan Yen first." Blue frowned and quickly turned around. But it was too late. As soon as he turned, he was punched down from the sky. His figure, like a stream of light, crashed into the mountains below. Lan Yen, now in tattered clothes, appeared in the sky, sneering. "With so little divine power, you want to defeat me? You're far from it." But before he could be happy for too long, he noticed countless clusters of energy waves floating around him, appearing out of nowhere. Down in the mountains below, Blue turned and spat out a mouthful of blood, calmly saying, "This is just the beginning." As soon as he finished speaking, countless clusters of energy waves began to gather and continuously bombarded Lan Yen. The loud noises rose and fell, persisting for the duration of a stick of incense before stopping. Thud! Lan Yen fell heavily from the sky, and Blue revealed a cold smile at the corner of his mouth. Looking at Lan Shui, "Aren't you going to make a move?" He already had the upper hand, and if Lan Shui and that big dark-skinned man didn't help, Lan Yen was really going to fall. Lan Shui frowned upon hearing this. She hadn't expected that Blue, whom she had easily defeated, had grown so powerful in such a short time. However, with just this divine power, it wasn't enough to defeat Lan Yen. Just as Blue was looking towards Lan Shui and the others, his back suddenly trembled, sensing a gradually rising aura. Lan Yen stood up completely unharmed, and his divine power erupted once more, surpassing 150 million. In terms of universe god, that was 1.5 stars. Blue also turned to look at him in disbelief, thinking to himself, "What kind of monsters are they? They had been fighting for so long, yet still hadn't used their full strength. And this was just one Lan Yen. Lan Shui hadn't even made a move yet, and that big dark-skinned man's strength wasn't trivial either. At this moment, he felt immense pressure but still furrowed his brow and fully unleashed his divine power. He also reached 150 million, 1.5 stars. He fiercely clashed with Lan Yen once more. Heaven and earth trembled, and the surrounding mountains all collapsed. In their intense battle, neither noticed a terrifying presence approaching, like a ferocious beast, watching them, ready to strike at any moment. In the star field of the gods, at the residence of the great realm king. On the primordial island, Jian Wushuang and the others were waiting for Hu Qing's cultivation. The flow of time here was different from the outside world. 1 year on the island equaled 1 day outside. When Hu Qing entered the wooden house, the time flow could reach a staggering billion times faster. Moreover, the time was extremely stable. The space-time of the Realm King continent was extremely stable, and below the universe god, no one could control the flow of time. Therefore, after Jian Wushuang and the others arrived at the Realm King continent, they couldn't control the flow of time to cultivate and could only train in the time house. What an intense battle! The group sat together, waiting for Hu Qing to finish cultivating, while also watching the battle between Blue and Lan Yen. This was a time-space orb left by the Realm King, allowing them to see the battle between Blue and the metal lifeform through the crystal ball. This battle indeed astonished everyone. They also saw the gap between universe gods and ordinary tribulation level. Jian Wushuang, with his current strongest combat power, couldn't even touch the edge of the universe god. Although he had crafted the perfect beast god weapon, he couldn't use it. He needed to reach the ninth tribulation to wield it. Now, relying solely on the super-ancient transformation, it was simply impossible to participate in battles of this level. He had to break through and become a ninth tribulation. It seems that Blue is not an opponent. Wooly shook his head and said, in battles of metal life forms, divine power is hardly consumed, but Blue's consumption is too great. Wuxia, however, retorted at this moment, don't forget, after Blue fused with Danbao's physical body, his divine body contained life force. He hasn't used it yet, and the consumed divine power can be replenished all at once. He is hiding his strength, waiting for a chance to deliver a fatal blow. Jian Wushuang, who had been silently watching, also understood the life force. Although it wasn't apparent, he could tell that Blue had already used all his strength. If he wasn't mistaken, Blue had even used his life force. Crash! He suddenly stood up, his pupils dilated. Not good. Through the crystal ball, he sensed a terrifying threat growing. This threat was directed at him. However, it had already targeted Blue. Wushuang, are you trying to scare me? Is Zamasu here? Wuxia also jumped up, looking around warily. It's Shilu. Just as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura rose in the crystal ball. At the edge of the star field of the gods, Blue and Lan Yan's battle had reached a fever pitch. Neither side could currently gain the upper hand. They stared at each other, waiting for the next opportunity to strike. But at this moment, Blue's eyes widened in horror as he stared behind Lan Yan, his voice trembling. You are Shilu? Crack. Following Blue's gaze, on a low mountain behind Lan Yan, stood a monster radiating golden light. Its feet, like human hands, gently grasped the ground and crushed the small mountain into powder. You actually recognize me. Was it Jian Wushuang who told you? From Blue, he could sense the aura of the northern spacetime. Lan Yan quickly turned his head upon hearing the commotion. When he saw Shilu, his pupils contracted. A natural fear arose from his heart. That fear seemed innate. It wasn't just Lan Yan. Lan Shui felt the same. Standing next to Lan Shui, a big black guy saw the emerging monster. His pupils also contracted sharply, and he clenched his fists. This was the first time he took something seriously. He hadn't cared about Blue and Lan Yan's battle before. Lan Yan and Lan Shui didn't know much about his strength, only that he was a man of few words. In fact, among the three metal life forms, his strength was the strongest. This visitor is not friendly. You take Lan Yan and leave later. Ha! Lan Shui said in surprise. You actually speak? This was the first time she heard the big guy speak. The big black guy, codenamed Lan Tian, also came from the northern spacetime. He is coming for you, Lan Tian said in a deep voice. Lan Shui remained calm and scoffed. So what? His divine power is barely at 1 star. Not much of a threat. No, that's just the surface. Indeed, as Lan Tian said, the aura Shilu had just released was only his regular combat strength. Seeing Shilu appear, Blue remembered what the Realm King had told him. Beware of Shilu. Beware of Shilu absorbing Lan Yan and Lan Shui. Once he absorbed these two metal life forms, it would be over. Even if Jian Wushuang and his companions could surpass themselves at the Great Realm King's place and even reach the level of Universe God, they would still not be a match for Shilu. The best solution now was to kill Lan Yan and Lan Shui, preventing Shilu from becoming complete. Or they could directly kill Shilu right now. Unfortunately, Blue couldn't do it. Let alone killing Shilu, it was difficult for him even to kill Lan Yan. At this moment, Lan Yan, recovering from his fear, frowned and said, Is this guy also with Jian Wushuang's group? You don't recognize him? This time it was Blue who was surprised. He didn't expect Lan Yan not to know Shilu. Suddenly, he understood. Metallic life forms were created by absorbing the life force of Wanlu. Shilu was created from the power of blood. They were two different types of beings. Though created by the same person, it was normal for them not to know each other. With this realization, he had an idea. Should I know this ugly fellow? Lan Yan retorted, finding Blue's question strange. Lan Yan, let's cooperate. Blue opened up and directly revealed Shilu's identity. He was here to absorb the powers of both Lan Yen and Lan Shui. They might as well cooperate, kill Shilu first, and then continue their fight. Upon hearing this, Lan Yen sneered, "Why don't you two attack together? I'd like to see how strong he really is." Although he felt that Shilu was terrifying, the divine power aura he sensed wasn't that strong. He might not necessarily be his opponent. Foolish! Blue cursed inwardly, thinking Lan Yen was too arrogant and couldn't see Shilu's true strength. This wasn't a fight that could be won one-on-one. Tisk, interesting. Blue, why don't you help me defeat these two metallic life forms? Then, I might spare your life. Shilu turned to Blue. He wasn't joking. He genuinely considered it because Lan Tian was a threat to him, while Lan Yen and Lan Shui were insignificant. Blue only sneered at this and clenched his fist. Suddenly, he turned and gathered an energy wave in one hand, releasing it in the direction of Lan Tian and Lan Shui. The ground trembled with the force of the attack. Caught off guard by the sudden attack, Lan Shui was stunned. But Lan Tian stepped forward, catching the energy wave with one hand without budging an inch. Then he started walking towards Shilu. As he walked, he said, "Lan Yen, take Lan Shui and escape quickly." "Escape?" Lan Yen scoffed. "You've got it wrong. They should be the ones running. We have the advantage, 3 against 2. Blue is helping you," Lan Tian corrected. "Shilu is stronger than you. Even I would have a hard time taking him down. You'd better stay far away." Upon hearing this, Blue was the first to retreat. His earlier attack was meant to force Lan Tian and Lan Shui to join forces and attack Shilu together. Shilu wasn't foolish either. He raised his arm and pointed a finger, and a beam of light shot from his fingertip, piercing Blue's chest in an instant. With just one strike, Blue was severely injured. At this moment, Lan Yen realized something was wrong, but still braced himself to stay. Seeing that he couldn't persuade him, Lan Tian stopped talking and walked alone towards Shilu. "Big guy, you can't handle it. Let me take care of it." Just as Lan Yen was about to intervene, he was stunned by the next scene. In a flash, Lan Tian reached Shilu and sent him flying with a single punch. Lan Tian's figure flickered as he struck again, grabbing Shilu's 2 wings and tearing them apart brutally. A huge gash appeared instantly. "Ah!" Lan Tian shouted angrily, his mouth bursting with multicolored light, and powerful divine power shot into the sky. At that moment, Lan Tian's divine power surpassed 2 stars. That was 200 million in divine power. The powerful impact poured into Shilu's body, causing Shilu to swell continuously. After swelling to a monstrous appearance, Shilu exploded completely. Fragments scattered all over the ground. Lan Tian panted heavily, turned to look at Lan Yen and said, "Take Lan Shui and leave quickly. Killing Jian Wushuang is your task. Don't worry about me. No rush. This monster is already heavily injured and poses no threat to me now." Although initially shocked, he remained somewhat arrogant, believing that the heavily injured Shilu posed no threat to him. He then glanced at Blue and said, "Still charging up? Don't rush. After I kill this monster, it'll be your turn." Ignorant. Blue continued to gather divine power in his single arm, which had already accumulated 180 million divine power. However, this was not for the metal life form, but to completely kill Shilu. Compared to Shilu, these metal life forms were much more adorable. He would rather die at the hands of a metal life form than let Shilu live. He wanted to give Shilu everything he had. Hopefully, a single blow would kill him completely. Crash! The shattered Shilu reformed again. But his divine power had significantly decreased. "You actually managed to hurt me." Shilu looked incredulous. After arriving on Realm God Continent, he had absorbed countless cultivators and even a universe god. He then began searching for metal life forms everywhere. He knew the metal life form's target was Jian Wushuang, so he waited in the star field of the gods, looking for an opportunity. He knew Lan Yen and Lan Shui's strength well, but he hadn't expected this big guy to be so powerful. "Shilu, I am your Terminator, Lan Tian." "Ha! Lan Tian's divine power erupted again. His fists shot out like galloping lions, piercing through the entire mountain range. Lan Yen and Lan Shui were dumbfounded by the scene. Even Blue was greatly surprised. The condensed divine power also paused. At this moment, it seemed like he wasn't needed anymore. Boom! The divine body of Shilu, shattered again, crawled out of the rubble with difficulty. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, he moved his broken arm, shouted angrily, and instantly restored his peak physical form. His divine power had not decreased much. Big black guy, I don't have your information. It seems you're a crude product. Lan Tian replied coldly. My goal is different from yours. You are here to kill Jian Wushuang, while I am here to end monsters that shouldn't belong in this world. Oh, Shilu sneered at this. So, you were created to kill me? You can think of it that way. Lan Tian clenched his fists, ready to strike again. But this time, Shilu didn't give him the chance. His figure flashed and rushed towards Lan Yen. Not good. Shilu's speed was extremely fast, surpassing Lan Tian, who couldn't stop him. This useless guy. Blue gritted his teeth. He had thought he wouldn't need to take action, but Shilu's sudden burst of speed was hard to contain. In the end, he had to act. Shilu! He shouted angrily, his single arm trembling. A beam of light shooting skyward. It rushed straight at Shilu. The divine power it contained reached the level of a 2-star universe god. Even if it couldn't kill Shilu, it would heavily injure him. You? Shilu looked shocked. Just as the beam was about to hit him, he grinned. They had been tricked. Both Blue and Lan Tian had been tricked. The beam pierced through Shilu, but Lan Yen was still absorbed, because the Shilu they saw was just a clone. Shilu had been plotting since the fight with Lan Tian, using the shattered divine body to reshape a clone. It was to attract Blue's attack. Shilu wasn't a fool. He had noticed Blue's situation long ago. Lan Tian was also a difficult opponent. Without using some strategy, success would be hard to achieve. Haha, you can't stop me. He laughed maniacally as Lan Yen struggled, eventually being absorbed into his body. Buzz! A powerful aura began to spread. The surrounding rubble vibrated. It's over. Blue's face was ashen. Initially, they thought they had this in the bag, not expecting the metal lifeform to be so strong. Then Zamasu appeared, but luckily, Lan Tian was able to hold him off. Unfortunately, those two idiots, Lan Yen and Lan Shui, refused to flee and insisted on watching from the side. And now look at what happened. Lan Yen was absorbed. Zamasu's power surged. Even if they all attacked together, there was probably no hope of survival. I'm sorry for disappointing you all. Blue slumped to the ground, his divine power completely drained. Lan Tian stood on the other side, his expression unreadable. But it was clear he too was on the brink of despair. He turned and shouted at Lan Shui, "Run! Flee deeper into the star field of the gods." But what about you? Lan Shui was still worried about Lan Tian. This warmed Lan Tian's heart, but he then spoke with a serious tone. My fate is here. I won't leave. Take care. After saying that, Lan Shui disregarded everything and flew towards the depths of the star field of the gods. Meanwhile, the changes in Zamasu continued. It wasn't just his divine power that transformed dramatically. Even his appearance changed. Originally gaunt, he now became even more robust. Ha! With a roar, Zamasu's evolution was complete. His divine power reached 270 million, an increase of nearly 100 million in divine power. If he were a universe god, he would have gained an additional star on his chest. The current Zamasu was barely considered a 3-star universe god. With such strength, he could easily sweep through ordinary star fields. Trying to escape? The evolved Zamasu took a light step forward, causing the space stewardess to shatter instantly. Just as he was about to move to give chase, Lan Tian stepped out again. Zamasu, you cannot leave. Oh! Zamasu sneered. Do you have such a big mouth? On the small island of the great realm king, Jian Wushuang and the others watched this scene, unable to help but gasp. So strong. Wuxia shook his head and said, I feel like I can never reach that level in this lifetime. The enemy we encountered this time is beyond my ability to participate. After speaking, he couldn't help but sigh. Before returning to Qishan Temple, he thought he was the protagonist. Later, the power of Miexing made him realize the reality. He felt he wasn't the protagonist. At best, he was a supporting character. He had even become a ninth tribulation early on. Unexpectedly, this time, he might not even have the ability to watch the battle. A quasi-3-star universe god. It wasn't just Wuxia. Even Wu Li and Divine Wood King couldn't surpass that level. Only Jian Wushuang and Hui Qing could. Don't be disheartened. Not being able to surpass them now doesn't mean you can't in the future. Jian Wushuang comforted everyone. In truth, he didn't have much confidence in his heart. He was currently only at the 8th tribulation. The gap was too vast. Trying to achieve the combat power of universe at the 8th tribulation was incredibly difficult, let alone reaching the level of a 3-star universe god. Currently, the only thing he could improve upon at the 8th tribulation was his origin source, increasing it to the extent of enduring tribulation, roughly tripling it. That meant 3 miniature spacetime rivers. With the increase in origin source power, his Starry Sky Chronicless and the 5th sword move might be able to kill a weaker universe god. But this was far from sufficient. He had to become the 9th tribulation. Upon reaching the 9th tribulation, his fundamental divine power would first surge dramatically. He could also venture into the Starry Sky secret realm to obtain some treasures. At the 9th tribulation, the fundamental divine power increased the most dramatically, at least 80 million. Perhaps even 90 million. By then, with the cooperation of the super-eternal ancient transformation and the Tao Arena's amplification, he might be able to put up a fight. The Beast God weapon. The extreme freedom intent technique. He wasn't sure how much these two would amplify. He did not dwell on it. In short, he only had hope of doing these things if he reached the 9th tribulation. I don't even know if the Great Realm King's method of improvement will work for me. Jian Wushuang thought anxiously. It would be best if he could directly endure the tribulation and become the 9th tribulation. Time passed minute by minute. In the crystal ball, Zamasu was ravaging Lan Tian. There was no way around it. The gap was too large. Hui Qing, hurry up a bit more. If Lan Tian couldn't hold on, Blue would be in danger. It seems I have to make a trip. He couldn't just watch Blue stay there and wait for death. Since the metal life forms were now preoccupied, there was no need to let Blue stay there as a shield. Brother Wushuang, you're going now? Wu Li stepped in to stop him, saying, Going now is no different from seeking death. Don't forget, Zamasu's target is you. Indeed, both Zamasu and the metal life forms were there for Jian Wushuang. Going now was akin to seeking death, wasn't it? I have the illusory sky. I can take Blue away. Jian Wushuang reassured them. Seeing that they were still trying to stop him, he looked at Wu Li and said, You know I promised something back then. Wu Li paused at his words and then stopped trying to dissuade him. Back on the Dragon God continent, Jian Wushuang had promised the Grand Elder to protect Blue and Danbao. Later, when Danbao became a god, he thought he was no longer needed. But this time, due to the appearance of the metal lifeforms, not only had Danbao abandoned his divine body, but Blue was also in mortal danger. He felt deeply guilty about it. If he let it go this time, he wouldn't be able to endure the tribulation. His mindset would be affected. No matter what, he had to go. Seeing this, everyone else stopped trying to persuade him. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. After saying this, he took out the divine artifact Illusory Sky, tore open a space-time rift, and disappeared from sight. The distance to the edge of the star field of the gods wasn't too far. A few breaths and he would arrive. Lan Tian still had some breath left and could hold on for a while longer. But fighting was impossible now. Lan Tian's divine body had been crippled, exposing mechanical bones. The divine power drive was damaged, leaving him without any combat power. Yet, relying on his strong physical body, he still clung to Zamasu. Damned bastard! Do you think this can stop me? Zamasu sneered disdainfully. He punched Lan Tian's head. With a powerful divine force, he directly shattered half of Lan Tian's head. Get lost. Despite this, he couldn't shake off Lan Tian. Zamasu was also enraged. By now, Lan Shui had already escaped far away. Although Zamasu could always sense Lan Shui's position, he was still worried about encountering any unforeseen circumstances. He was about to thoroughly understand Lan Tian. Just as he was about to take action, a beam of light suddenly struck at the speed of light. Shilu raised his hand and blocked it. The power of this beam was very weak, not even reaching the level of a universe god. For Shilu now, it posed no threat at all. He just felt very annoyed at being ambushed. TSK. Don't be in a hurry. Your turn will come soon. Shilu sneered, preparing to deliver the final blow to Lan Tian. Blue had already collapsed from exhaustion, devoid of hope. No one could. Buzz. The surrounding space-time instantly shattered. A figure appeared in the sky above. Shilu, who was about to strike, stopped. Seeing Jian Wushuang, he was a little surprised, but upon probing, he found that Jian Wushuang's divine power was even less than that of a universe god. He chuckled, "Another one here to die." Jian Wushuang ignored Shilu and flashed to Blue's side. After grabbing the unconscious Blue with one hand, he turned to look at Shilu. "Shilu, if you have the guts, wait for 1 hour. Someone will come to deal with you." Hu Qing was almost out. Perhaps then he could fight Shilu. "Someone's coming?" Shilu was surprised. "You have help? Not planning to die yourself? Don't be in a hurry. Do you dare to give me a few days' time?" Jian Wushuang stood in the wind, his hair dancing. He wasn't bragging. If given a few days, he had hope of fighting Shilu. "Ha ha!" Shilu laughed. "A few days? Do you think in a few days you can become a universe god?" It was like he was talking in his sleep, making Shilu laugh out loud. "To deal with you, there's no need for a universe god." His deliberate provocation made Shilu frown. It wasn't because of the verbal provocation making him uncomfortable. At this level, he no longer cared about such things. But he was curious how Jian Wushuang, who didn't even have universe god combat power, dared to speak to him so easily. Was he not afraid that Shilu would strike now? No one here could stop him. Thinking of this, his eyebrows moved as he thought of something. Too late. Jian Wushuang sneered, tearing open the space-time and disappearing with Blue. Originally, he planned to leave right after finding Blue. But upon arrival, he received a message from Lan Tian. Lan Tian hoped he could stall Shilu for some time. That's why he spoke so much to Shilu. With his personality, he wouldn't boast or risk staying when he lacked strength. It was all because of Lan Tian. Inside Lan Tian was a strand of destructive material. Once detonated, it could destroy a star field. This was his trump card, but it needed some time to activate. Just now, Jian Wushuang was merely stalling for time. Now that Shilu noticed, he could naturally leave. What remained was up to fate. Even if it couldn't kill Shilu, it could seriously injure him. Swish! Back on the Great Realm King's island, he finally breathed a sigh of relief, fearing Lan Tian couldn't hold off Shilu. Here he felt somewhat safe. Then he hurriedly looked at the crystal ball. How is it? Is Shilu dead? Wooly blinked and hesitated. It seems not completely dead. Through the crystal ball, they could see a constant flicker of dark light, with Shilu's figure within it. It was indeed impossible to discern life or death. The tremendous commotion soon reached this place. Even with the restrictions in place, a muffled thunder could still be heard. Too terrifying, everyone gasped in shock. Even Jian Wushuang was sweating coldly, grateful for his quick escape. Otherwise, if he had been even slightly contaminated, he would have perished. As they watched the crystal ball, the door of the wooden house opened. Hu Qing, with a resolute gaze, walked out calmly. Seeing Hu Qing emerge, Jian Wushuang turned his head in surprise and exclaimed, "So soon!" He had expected it to take more time and hadn't anticipated Hu Qing's swift exit. It was just the right moment to go and finish off Shilu. Just a stroke of luck. Hu Qing's demeanor and aura had changed considerably. Once gentle, he was now icy cold. He had an air of being unapproachable. "How is your strength?" Wu Zhuo hurriedly approached, eager to gauge how much Hu Qing's power had increased. Hu Qing replied calmly, "I have transcended the divine tribulation." Buzz. Everyone was stunned. He had transcended the divine tribulation? This was incredible. Having transcended the divine tribulation meant he had become a universe god. Was Hu Qing now a universe god? Jian Wushuang was also taken aback but quickly understood. Hu Qing had already reached the peak of the 9th tribulation stage, with divine power comparable to a universe god. Now, with the guidance and enhancement from the great realm king, transcending the divine tribulation didn't seem so difficult. While it sounded easy, only Hu Qing knew how challenging it was. His personality and temperament had changed, suggesting he had been through a lot. "Tell me the location of the metallic life forms. It's time to deal with them." "There's no need for that." Jian Wushuang shook his head and said, "Hu Qing, the situation has changed. Xilu has appeared. In just one day they had faced 3 waves of enemies. First, it was Gallo and his metallic life forms. Then, Lan Yen and Lan Shui. Lastly, Xilu. Each time, the opponents grew stronger. Their own strength continuously surpassed previous limits. First, Blue and Danbao's physical fusion elevated them to the level of universe gods. Then, Hu Qing transcended the divine tribulation, and his current aura seemed no weaker than Xilu's. It was another qualitative leap. Without opponents, they had been confined to northern spacetime for millions of eras, with limited growth in strength. Yet now, in just one day, their power had multiplied several times over. Having opponents was truly beneficial. Although the pressure was immense, the results were evident. This increase in strength might even surpass the Academy of the Gods. Moreover, the greatest promise of the Academy of the Gods was to become a deity. In the blink of an eye, Hu Qing had achieved it, and he became an exceptionally powerful universe god. The only question remaining was how many stars he possessed. "Xilu." Hu Qing's eyes flickered as he clenched his fist. "Last time, he escaped from my grasp. This time, he won't get another chance." Back in the northern spacetime, it was indeed Hu Qing's hesitation that allowed the opponent to escape. This time, the encounter with his nemesis made his eyes blaze with intense anger. "We still need to be cautious. Xilu now possesses the combat power of a quasi-3-star universe god." Jian Wushuang was somewhat uneasy. He had witnessed Xilu's terrifying aura before. "Come quickly, Xilu has appeared." Hu Qing's gaze followed the direction indicated. In the crystal ball, Xilu's figure appeared. Lan Tian had already perished. However, Xilu remained unharmed. A green glow emanated from his body. That was the power of life. He was continuously restoring his divine body. He has mastered the power of life, and it's so abundant that he recovers this quickly. That's normal. Don't forget who created that thing. It was a metallic life form from the Wanlu divine tree. Wu Li nodded slightly. "Indeed. Hu Qing, act quickly. We can't give him a chance to catch his breath. Lan Shui hasn't been absorbed yet. If Xilu becomes complete, it will be a true disaster." Now, Xilu was already so strong just by absorbing Lan Yen. Once he became complete, how powerful would he be? It was unimaginable. He had to be eliminated as soon as possible. "Complete." Hu Qing sneered, a hint of disdain in his expression. "I want to see just how strong he will be in his complete form." With that, he casually tore through spacetime and instantly disappeared from the spot. After Hu Qing left, Wu's were remarked in surprise. "Hu Qing has changed so much." "That's normal. There's a significant difference between a universe god and a universe master. It's inevitable that one's personality changes after becoming a universe god. But this change is too drastic." Wu Li couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Although he hadn't met Hu Qing many times, he could see how much Hu Qing had changed. "Forget it, let's not talk about that. Who's next to go in?" Jian Wushuang changed the topic. Improving their strength was the most important thing right now. Even if Hu Qing successfully killed Xilu, they still needed to cultivate. They couldn't waste this excellent opportunity. "You go first. I don't have much confidence. The gap to becoming a universe god is too great." Wu's was sighed. Wu Li and the king of the divine tree felt the same. They had already reached their limits. Even with the great realm king's help, they could only increase their divine power by 10 or 20 million at most, reaching a state comparable to a universe god. Breaking through to become a universe god was not something that could be achieved with just a simple opportunity. Jian Wushuang smiled and said, "Then I'll go in first." After all, only a day would pass in the outside world. They could afford to wait. Go ahead. I hope you can also become a universe god in one fell swoop. Thanks for the good wishes. Jian Wushuang smiled. If he could become a universe god, that would be ideal. This time, he aimed to reach the 9th tribulation realm. He stepped into the wooden house. Immediately, the surroundings spun wildly. After a moment, a white world appeared before his eyes. Here I am. Jian Wushuang looked up and saw the Great Realm King's figure, standing in midair. Great Realm King Senior. The Great Realm King, with his hands behind his back, said calmly, "No need for formalities. In this place, everything depends on you. I can only guide you in your realm and provide you with treasures. I've observed that your origin source is very special. I might not even be able to guide you. Just tell me what treasures you need." The origin source of the starry sky, Jian Wushuang said enthusiastically. As much as possible. His realm was indeed very high. He had even reached the level of a universe god, and a very powerful one at that. With enough origin source of the starry sky, he could even reach the perfection of the 9th tribulation realm. He had that confidence. He just feared that the opponent's origin source of the starry sky wouldn't be enough. Can you handle it? The Great Realm King was taken aback. He hadn't expected Jian Wushuang to have such a large appetite. Jian Wushuang didn't bother to hide anything. He directly revealed his origin universe. 9 ultimate universes appeared, connected in a line. The ultimate power emanated from them. Among them, the origin universe pulsed with blue light. This was the Starry Sky universe, the most powerful universe. Once connected in a line, it formed the Starry Sky River. Illuminating the entire starry sky, this world would gain a second starry sky. This was Jian Wushuang's current scope. Embarking on this path, he knew what it entailed. He remembered the words Weiss had spoken back then. Great Realm King, you should know that the so-called universe god is merely a universe that has reached its end. The path I will take is the path of the starry sky. The ultimate great evolution of the universe god could expand infinitely. But such a universe was chaotic. Jian Wushuang would not take that path. He was going to walk the perfect path of the starry sky. Saying that it was unprecedented might be an exaggeration. After all, there was still a perfect starry sky existing today. The Great Realm King gasped, exclaiming, "Of course I know that the universe god takes the path of chaotic expansion. If I'm not mistaken, you are walking the extreme path of the starry sky." "That's right. I believe that the ultimate universe is inferior to perfection. It's better to develop the starry sky, which can carry more." Jian Wushuang had already experienced the end of the universe. Since mastering the extreme path and entering the starry sky, he had found his own path. Creating a magnificent starry sky. That was the goal. To let the land of the infinite or the land of chaos give birth to a second starry sky. Currently, it was unknown whether there was a second starry sky in the land of chaos. He couldn't guarantee it would be the second, but he was certain that he would be the next creator of a starry sky. Jian Wushuang, have you considered how difficult this path is? The Great Realm King couldn't bear to say, the chaotic universe may have its drawbacks, but the power increase is very rapid. You might become a new Realm King or even a Realm King God. With your talent, no less than the previous Realm King God, you have the potential to create your own Realm King continent in the starry sky. Jian Wushuang was moved. He hadn't expected such secrets behind the Realm King continent. Seeing his surprise, the Great Realm King continued, "The periphery of the starry sky initially didn't have the long river of spacetime. It wasn't until the appearance of the 4 spacetime gods, the Realm King gods, that the long river of spacetime began to surround the starry sky. Later, the Great Realm King appeared and created the Realm King continent. They didn't take the ultimate path of the universe, a brand new path, from the ultimate expansion of the universe to the appearance of the long river of spacetime. It was a qualitative change. Now, Jian Wushuang wanted to go from spacetime to the starry sky. It was also a qualitative change. The appearance of the great Realm King led to the emergence of the Realm King gods, the spacetime gods. That's why Zamasu was so arrogant. Jian Wushuang, if you want to take this path, I won't stop you, because you are a pioneer. Even if you fail, you'll have done justice to your talent. These words were an encouragement to Jian Wushuang. Even if he failed in the future, he would have paved part of the way for those who followed. This was the charm of pioneering a path. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily. I have no regrets. With these words, he solidified his path. The great Realm King said nothing more. He immediately made a gesture, and a blue space appeared. This is the path to the origin source of the starry sky. There, you will find the starry sky power you need, as much as you want. But you need enough strength to obtain it. This is something I cannot help with. This is more than enough. Jian Wushuang bowed slightly. Giving him a path to obtain the starry sky origin source was already very generous. After speaking, he stepped into the origin source of the starry sky. Whoosh! His entire body seemed to enter another space. The surrounding space was more stable, and the gravity was many times stronger than on the Realm King continent. The origin source of the starry sky? Could this really be the source of the starry sky? Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised. If it was truly the origin source, then indeed as much starry sky origin source as he needed, he could get. Even reaching the perfection of the 8th tribulation realm or undergoing the divine tribulation wouldn't be a problem. The 9 tribulation tower? Upon entering this starry sky origin source, he saw the 9 tribulations tower again. It was exactly like the one he had obtained before. But back then, Weiss had taken it away. He hadn't expected to see it again. Jian Wushuang's heart stirred as he thought, could it be possible to see Weiss again? Seeing the 9 tribulations tower, he understood what needed to be done. To obtain the origin source of the starry sky, he needed to pass through this 9 tribulations tower. Back when he was still an emperor, he had barely managed to pass the first level. Entering again this time, he wasn't sure if he could pass all 9 levels. Swish! With one step, he directly entered the 9 tribulations tower. This place was different from when he had first entered. There were carvings all around. It looked like the starry sky, as he had never seen such a colorful decoration. It must have come from starry sky civilization. Crash! As soon as he entered, a masked person appeared on the first level. But it was different from the masked Weiss he encountered back then. After all, Weiss was a star spirit and wouldn't permanently reside in the 9 tribulations tower. Back then, Weiss appeared in the northern spacetime because of the matter of the Wanlu divine tree. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate either. He clasped his hands and shouted, "Ha!" Divine power erupted instantly. In the blink of an eye, he passed the first level. Then came the second level. He didn't feel any pressure until he reached the 8th level. The opponent on the 8th level was the same, but the divine power was different. The divine power used was from the starry sky, and it wasn't overly exaggerated. The 8th level only required 30 million divine power, which was the limit for someone at the 8th tribulation. However, the masked person used the art of free intent, which made Jian Wushuang quite troubled. Even though his divine power was much higher, defeating the opponent was difficult. Through continuous attempts, he slowly comprehended the wonders of free intent. After such a long time of comprehension, he finally reached the entry-level stage. Gradually, he began to enter his own free intent. His body technique was extremely exquisite. For practice, he even suppressed his divine power. He maintained his divine power at the same level as the masked person. Just fighting on the 8th level took him 10 years. His free intent completely reached the entry-level stage. Even at the entry level, Jian Wushuang could use 30 million divine power to fight against a strong opponent with 50 million divine power without being at a disadvantage. If it were a peak duel, his 90 million divine power could completely rival a universe god. Although there was no substantial increase in divine power, his combat power increased. This was more terrifying than increasing divine power, because the opponent couldn't grasp his depth. Free intent was divided into entry, minor completion, major completion, peak, perfect, and ultimate. Just reaching entry could increase combat power so much. The future was unimaginable. The 9th level. Swish. Currently, he was only at the 8th tribulation. He didn't know if he could enter the 9th level. After the teleportation, the surroundings didn't change. Unexpectedly, I can. This was the same as the previous teleportation. After passing the first 8 levels, he hadn't obtained any origin source of the starry sky. It seemed that one had to pass the entire 9 tribulations tower to obtain the origin source of the starry sky. After reaching the 9th level, his opponent was a masked person with the combat power of a universe god. Jian Wushuang just happened to lack a sparring partner. With his eyesight, he could tell that the masked person on the 9th level had only 80 million divine power. However, it could unleash divine power of 130 million. This was no longer a simple entry-level achievement. It had definitely reached the minor success stage. Otherwise, it wouldn't have increased so much. Jian Wushuang's current peak divine power was only 90 million. With the addition of the increased battle power from his extreme freedom intent technique, it barely reached 120 million. But he also had the Starry Sky Chronicles, the swordsmanship blessed by the origin source. It was no less powerful than the selfless intent technique and could also be used to fight across levels. The sword intent, surpassing his current strength, surged. The 5th sword. Reincarnation of time and space. Clang. Despite this, he still stayed in the 9th level for a full 1,000 years before coming out. Past. The 1,000 years of battle had greatly enhanced his selfless intent technique and had brought the Starry Sky Chronicles to its peak at the 5th level. When he reached the perfection of the 9th tribulation, he might be able to perform the 6th sword. Even immortals could be defeated, or rather, even gods could be slain. That sword was the essence of the Starry Sky Chronicles. There were 4 swords among them that he had not yet comprehended. The 6th sword had only been slightly performed when he fused with Hu Qing. He still didn't know which path needed to be improved. Reincarnation of time and space contained 4 paths: life, death, time, space. Mastering them all was the reincarnation of time and space. With the 4 major origin sources blessing the swordsmanship, the 5th sword had such terrifying power. Actually, it could be considered as 5 origin sources. There was also Sword Dao. But swordsmanship also belonged to time and space. Could be considered a prominent minor Dao. Couldn't compare to the great Dao. Jian Wushuang had forcibly elevated swordsmanship to a level it didn't belong to. The origin source of life didn't need much explanation. Every life contained it, which was the great path. Death was the same. Space-time carried all living things. These 4 paths, whichever one was cultivated, could lead to becoming a universe god. Take space as an example. When one perfected the origin source of space at the level of emperor, one could undergo tribulation to condense the universe space. Reaching the extreme was becoming a universe god. Space was chaotic and infinitely expansive. Perhaps the great Yen domain was left by a universe god. Its chaotic expansion penetrated the northern space-time. Otherwise, he truly couldn't create a universe comparable to the great Yen domain. In that universe, it even nurtured countless worlds. Unfortunately, it couldn't be found. He didn't know if Miexing had hidden it or voluntarily separated it. He would still seek it out if he had the chance in the future. Beyond time, a one space was the place of infinite Aos. If the great Yen domain expanded there, it would be an independent universe. It wouldn't be within the starry sky. Phew! Thinking of this, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but take a deep breath. He didn't know how teacher Xianxia had found that universe. As far as he knew, only Xianxia could enter at will. And the old master. This mystery puzzled him for a long time, so much so that he later took a trip to the northern spacetime, looking through the worlds before and after time. Only then did he feel relieved. Perhaps it was just a time discrepancy. That was why these unsolved mysteries were left. After passing the 9 Tribulation Tower, he was transported back to the origin of the starry sky. But this time, a higher tower appeared before him. The tower had 5 levels: universe, space-time, starry sky, chaos. But the 5th level had no plaque. There was no name labeled. But the first 4 levels still stunned Jian Wushuang. He had the universe. Time and space were still far off. The starry sky was even more exaggerated. As for chaos, it represented the chaotic and infinite place beyond the world. That was even more absurd. Now there was a 5th layer. The doubts in his heart immediately surfaced. Back then, when Weiss brought out the 9 Tribulation Tower, he didn't mention that there was another tower above it. As he was confused, a boundary stone monument descended. Boom! It heavily smashed onto the ground. Above it were rows of names inscribed. Starry Sky Master, 12 Star Spirits, Great Realm King. There was no name after Starry Sky Master, or rather Jian Wushuang couldn't see it. After the Star Spirits there were 12 names. One of them was Weiss. After the Great Realm King there were 17 names. These were the Great Realm Kings of past generations. The first Realm King God Yi, famous with just a single character. This must be the person the Great Realm King mentioned, the ruthless figure who created space-time in history. To be the first to create space-time was already very impressive. The current 4 great spacetimes and the Realm King continent were all created by this powerful being. There were many more Realm King gods after him. Since the creation of the Realm King continent, dozens of Realm King gods had been born. There were even more great Realm Kings compared to ordinary Realm Kings. Only the star spirits above were eternal markers. The first star spirit, Great Star Officer. This person was second to none and held immense power over countless people. No one knew how much stronger was compared Weiss. There were also star spirit messengers who were not listed, but they surely possessed power at least stronger than the Realm King gods. However, they were considered practitioners, not true gods. After reading the names on the stone monument, Jian Wushuang realized why he was shown this stone monument. Could it be that everyone listed had once ventured into this tower? Jian Wushuang was somewhat puzzled. He came here for the origin source of the starry sky. Having just passed the 9 Tribulation Tower, he had undergone 9 tribulations and obtained an ultimate cosmic origin source. It contained the power of the starry sky. In his origin starry sky, an additional universe had appeared. However, he was still far from crossing the tribulation. He needed to continue challenging the 9 Tribulation Tower. As for this tower, he couldn't even find the door. Calling out to the heavens was futile, and calling out to the earth was in vain. He had no choice but to return to the 9 Tribulation Tower. He needed to obtain enough origin source of the starry sky. Meanwhile, the battle outside had just begun. After he entered the time house, the Great Realm King couldn't guide him and could only let the third person enter. The third to enter was Blue. Having just restored his divine body, he immediately began training. He wanted to increase his strength. Having just fused with Danbao's divine avatar, he lasted less than a day, feeling guilty in his heart. He had no heart to face Danbao. He only wanted to enhance his divine power to resolve the issue with Shilu and the metal life forms. Outside, only Hu Qing remained. At this moment, he was rushing towards Shilu. Lan Tian had died in battle. Lan Yen was absorbed. Lan Shui was missing. Shilu was rapidly heading towards the depths of the star field of the gods, searching for Lan Shui. Although the star field of the gods had declined, its foundation remained. Shilu didn't dare to cause too much destruction while searching for Lan Shui, because ancient realm king gods of past generations still slumbered in this place. In the star field of the gods, the fallen land of the 7th generation realm king. Above a sea area, scattered small islands below could be clearly seen. A cold figure now appeared above the sea surface. It was Lan Shui, being chased by Shilu. Lan Shui moved slightly, her brows furrowing. Why is there a restriction here? The path ahead was blocked by a restriction. She couldn't get through. If she took a detour now, Shilu would surely catch up. As she hesitated, a terrifying aura was rushing towards her. Lan Shui couldn't manage much and had to first head to the small island below to hide. Metallic life forms had no aura. Only Shilu could sense them. The aura just now came from the front, not from Xilu. In the star field of the gods, no matter whom one encounters, if they are stronger, it's best to hide first. As soon as Lan Shui landed in the bushes on the ground, she noticed a golden aura burst through the sky. Doesn't that guy know there's a prohibition here? Lan Shui looked up, her heart shaking. Within the golden aura, a black-clad figure directly broke through the barrier, causing the seawater below to surge. It's him. Seeing the figure within the golden aura, Lan Shui was shocked. It was Hu Qing whom she had previously beaten up. Now he had become so strong. At least 3 billion divine power. Even more terrifying than Xilu's aura. Fortunately, he couldn't lock onto her. Otherwise, it would be over. Just as she was worrying, a terrifying green aura shot up from the sky behind Xilu. Seeing this, Lan Shui felt a burst of joy. If Hu Qing encountered Xilu, a battle would ensue. Then she could seize the opportunity to escape. This day had brought too many surprises. First, Blue's divine power suddenly doubled, allowing him to fight Lan Yen to a draw. Then Xilu appeared, absorbing Lan Yen and killing Lan Tian. Now, seeing Hu Qing's sudden increase in divine power by several times, she felt relieved. She could now accept these monsters, for whom increasing power was as simple as drinking water. Boom! At this moment, in the sky, two super strong figures met. Xilu knew Hu Qing and Hu Qing knew Xilu. These two had a long-standing grudge. Back in the northern spacetime, Hu Qing had almost killed Xilu. This time, he wouldn't let his opponent escape. He wanted to avenge his past humiliation. Xilu, on the other hand, sought revenge for being beaten back then. Long time no see. It has been a while. Their conversation was like that of friends. Both stood in the sky, staring at each other. It seems you've absorbed the metallic life forms and increased your power this much. Hu Qing used his thought power and sensed Xilu's not insignificant strength. Just as Blue said, he was already a quasi-3-star universe god. Xilu's eyes flickered as he replied, "Still a bit short, but enough to deal with you now. Then let's get started." Hu Qing spread his hands, his aura surging, waiting for Xilu to make his move. Swoosh! Xilu didn't have time to reminisce with Hu Qing. He needed to find Lan Shui quickly. The aura he had locked onto was nearby. He feared Hu Qing might kill Lan Shui, preventing him from becoming a complete entity. He had to kill Hu Qing before finding Lan Shui. Then he would go and kill Jian Wushuang. Then he would truly be free, and those guys in the southern spacetime wouldn't be able to control him. Boom! He launched an all-out attack, using his full power of 275 million divine power. He punched Hu Qing right in the face. Eh! After throwing that punch, he was stunned. Hu Qing wasn't affected at all. He continued to stare at him with a cold smile. "Is this all your strength?" Hu Qing said disdainfully. "You disappoint me, Xilu." After speaking, he spun around and kicked Xilu into the sea below. He followed up quickly, and the moment Xilu fell, he delivered a knee strike. Xilu's divine body instantly shattered. Green liquid flowed from the corner of his mouth. A series of attacks from Hu Qing almost crushed Xilu, leaving him no room to fight back. "Show your strength, Xilu." All the dissatisfaction from being tormented by the life was vented on Xilu. Hu Qing grew stronger as the battle continued, now in the state of a 3-star universe god. He clasped his hands together, and a massive light shadow appeared at the bottom of the sea. Xilu's face darkened. This strike could kill him. Impossible! Buzz! A green protective shield appeared around Xilu. "How are you this strong? This is impossible. According to the previous information, you aren't a universe god." Half of Xilu's body had been smashed. Now he could only maintain the protective shield, hoping to withstand Hu Qing's strike. "Haha! This is my strength. Even if you don't believe it, it can still do whatever it wants with you." Hu Qing raised one hand, and the entire light ball shot into the sky. The seawater instantly evaporated, and everything around turned to ashes. Lan Shui was also exposed. She was still astonished by Hu Qing's divine power, her eyes wide open. The shock in her heart was indescribable. In that moment of distraction, Shilu looked over, his eyes filled with greed. Lan Shui! His eyes flashed, and he instantly rushed towards Lan Shui. Hu Qing, however, sneered and attacked immediately. He threw the huge energy ball in his hand. The speed was so fast it surpassed time. This was the battle power of a universe god. Before Shilu could get close to Lan Shui, he felt an unprecedented threat. The protective shield only lasted for a moment before cracks appeared. He couldn't move at all. Shilu was almost going crazy. Lan Shui was right in front of him, yet he couldn't reach her. On the Great Realm King's Island, Wuxia and others watching the battle cheered excitedly. Good, good, good. This time we don't need to take action. Hu Qing can handle it alone. Wu Li, however, said reluctantly, Alas, it seems I won't have the chance to show my face this time. What chance do you have to go out and die? Lan Shui can crush you with one hand. What's the use of saying that? King Shenmu, who had at least once been a king, disdainfully concealed himself like Wuxia and Wu Li. He just felt that over the years he had fallen behind too much. Even without Shilu's threat, he needed to go in and train. To catch up with Hu Qing and Blue. Stop pretending. Shilu's death benefits us all. Just watch Hu Qing's performance honestly. It really couldn't be called a performance, because at this moment, Shilu had already turned into dust. Only a piece of metal in his brain was left. It hadn't shattered yet, proving he hadn't truly fallen. In a split second, Shilu recovered his form again. However, his divine power had already dropped to the lowest point, just 1 billion divine power. The lowest point for a universe god. He clenched his fists unwillingly, wanting to erupt. But there was no change in his breath. He completely withered away. Hu Qing, you should die. Every time you come out and cause trouble at my last step, I have no grudge against you. Why do you target me? Shilu roared helplessly and furiously. He looked up and roared to the sky. He turned to glance at Lan Shui, who couldn't get up. His eyes were filled with greed. He had completely gone mad, rushing towards Lan Shui regardless. Hu Qing's previous strike had severely injured Lan Shui. She was lying there, this was his last chance. But as soon as he took a step, Hu Qing flashed behind him and kicked him directly in front of Lan Shui. Shilu struggled to get up, a peak spike behind him, ready to stab Lan Shui. He still didn't want to give up. Hu Qing shook his head and sneered. She is mine. With that, he kicked Shilu to the side, stepping hard on Shilu's forehead and said, I gave you a chance before, but you couldn't grasp it. When we got to the Realm King continent, I could still kill you. This is your fate, destined to never be my match in this life. Since coming out of seclusion, Hu Qing in black had undergone a tremendous change in personality. Even Shilu was very shocked at why Hu Qing had become so arrogant now. Although he was somewhat arrogant before, at least he wouldn't say it out loud. The current Hu Qing indeed seemed a bit unfamiliar. This was all related to the tribulation. Shilu still wasn't resigned, shouting, Just a bit more. If I became complete, you would surely die. Definitely not my match. You just got lucky. Kill me then. But I will never be convinced even if I fall. Shilu still stubbornly resisted. Hu Qing's eyes shifted, staring at Shilu under his foot. Do you think I would care for something at my feet? With that, he kicked Shilu away. Just a waste, given so many chances, still useless. You don't have another chance to stay. Killing Shilu was to settle the mistake made in the northern spacetime. As for the complete form, he was indeed somewhat interested. Turning his head, he casually grabbed Lan Shui in his hand, sneering, Just with this? You have the confidence to defeat me? Yes. Shilu stood up, greedily staring at Lan Shui. As long as I absorb her, I can definitely win. If you're afraid, just do it now. Trying to goad him? Too clever for your own good. Hu Qing shook his head and said, Do you think goading would work on me? He had passed the tribulation, his mind long unified. The goal was to kill Shilu, and that would not change. But letting the opponent become complete was not part of the plan. He really wanted to see what the complete Shilu would be like. Looking at Lan Shui in his hand, Hu Qing said indifferently, "However, I really want to see your desperate expression." Whoosh! With a slight force, he directly threw Lan Shui towards Shilu. "Absorb her, then fight me." Shilu's face lit up with joy, arrogantly saying, "Hu Qing, you are really my great benefactor. You spared me last time, and this time you gave me the chance to become complete. I really don't know how to thank you. Then show some strength to repay me well. I won't let you down." Shilu opened his peak spike and directly swallowed Lan Shui. On the Great Realm King's Island, Wuxia and others, seeing this scene, all widened their eyes. Hu Qing! They had just thought that Shilu dying so quickly was a bit too easy for the other side. But now they became anxious. Foolish! Couldn't see through such a simple goading? Wuxia shook his head and said, "No, this is an open scheme. The current Hu Qing is very arrogant, and Shilu just took advantage of that. In fact, Hu Qing's weakness was exposed long ago. Back then, Hu Qing was mild-tempered, but his actions were still somewhat arrogant. Could be seen when he fought Shilu back then. No need to worry too much. What if the complete Shilu is just like that? Yes, we still have a chance." The God King of Wood took the opportunity to mock. "Of course you have a chance. Get ready to be hunted by Shilu then." They had all witnessed Shilu's evolution. Initially, he only had a bit over 100 million divine power, considered quasi-2-star. After absorbing Lan Yen, he directly became quasi-3-star. This complete form would likely be even stronger. At least 4-star, maybe even quasi-5-star. And Hu Qing's divine power was only 3-star. At most 3.5 stars. How could this solve Shilu? Couldn't be that the complete Shilu only had 3-star universe god power. That would be a laughingstock. Jian Wushuang's previous confidence proved that he had the capability to back it up. At this moment, in the sky above the sea, the white light was dazzling. Even Lan Shui had to shield her eyes and couldn't look directly. It took a whole incense stick of time before the white light finally stopped. Looking down, she saw Jian Wushuang walk out from the white light. His expression was calm, and his entire demeanor had changed significantly. With one hand on his waist, he looked up at Lan Shui in the sky and spread his hands, saying, "How about it? Are you satisfied?" At this moment, Jian Wushuang's figure had shrunk a bit, and his single-hand stance appeared more solid than before. Perhaps his divine body was more complete, making his physical form appear different as well. Lan Shui crossed her arms and slowly descended from the sky, landing on the seawater that had surged in. "Cut the crap, let's fight directly. This time, I will show you despair. I am looking forward to it." Jian Wushuang remained calm. He wasn't flustered or excited about becoming a complete form, and his temperament had greatly changed. As soon as Lan Shui finished speaking, she struck immediately, delivering a fierce elbow blow to Jian Wushuang's chest. Bang! With just a muffled sound, Lan Shui's expression froze. TSK. Not bad. Jian Wushuang glanced down at Lan Shui and then raised his hand, slapping her away. Lan Shui found it hard to believe. She had just used 70% of her strength. The battle power of a 3-star universe god couldn't shake Jian Wushuang in the slightest. Immediately, she roared in anger, clenching her fists tightly. Buzz! With a loud explosion, the surrounding aura instantly reversed. Lan Shui's divine power erupted from 3 stars directly to the level of a quasi-4-star universe god. She coldly stared at Jian Wushuang. "The game ends now." "You're right." But Jian Wushuang looked at her like she was a fool. He didn't regard Lan Shui at all, simply raising one hand to mimic her full power. A massive divine power wave surged into the sky. This time, Lan Shui's expression turned awkward. How can he do that? Before Lan Shui could react, the light wave instantly attacked. The speed was far above hers. Fortunately, the range wasn't large and she barely dodged it in time. But before she could breathe a sigh of relief, she realized it wasn't just one light wave. It was 2. No, now there were 4. 8. The light waves, like they were splitting, instantly filled the entire sky. This scene not only made Lan Shui gasp. Even the gods in the star field of the gods couldn't help but marvel. In the northern spacetime, the monster they created, it was truly invincible. On the Great Realm King's Island, Wuxia and the others were dumbfounded. At this moment, Blue happened to walk out of the time chamber. "Your turn now." After he came out, he noticed Wuxia and the others' strange expressions and walked over. Looking down, he saw the scene in the crystal ball, and his expression changed dramatically. He has become a complete form? Blue found it hard to believe. When Lan Shui came out, he could tell that Lan Shui's divine power was much stronger than Jian Wushuang's at that time. How did Jian Wushuang become a complete form in just one day? And to achieve complete form at Lan Shui's hands? Just moments ago, Blue, who had been full of confidence, wilted completely. He had become a true dragon god under the guidance of the Great Realm King. Moreover, he was a unique special life form. His divine power had already reached its peak. He possessed the combat strength of a quasi-3-star universe god. But now, even Hu Qing, who had the strength of a 4-star universe god, was no match. Continuing to train would be futile. He had already hit a bottleneck. The guidance of the Great Realm King was no longer useful, and no amount of treasures could help. To progress further, he would either have to venture out into the world or receive guidance from someone who surpassed the Great Realm King. But the strongest person they could possibly associate with was the Great Realm King. Any stronger, and that would be the Realm King God. Such a transcendent and otherworldly figure would never concern themselves with these minor matters. Alas, arrogance truly leads to one's downfall. Wuxia had already collapsed to the side. At this moment, he had lost the desire to enter the time chamber. He glanced at the crystal ball, and his eyes suddenly brightened as he spoke. "No, perhaps we still have a chance." "A chance?" Everyone looked up at Wuxia. "Jian Wushuang." Wuxia glanced at everyone and then looked towards the time chamber. Perhaps this time a miracle would happen. At that moment they would surely win. Believe in him. That figure carrying a sword. It seemed to be right before their eyes. He had become their last straw of hope. A whole day has passed, and there's still no movement from the time chamber. Brother Wushuang might not be able to come out in a short time. Don't forget, he was only at the 8th tribulation when he went in. Now, even if Blue has the combat strength to surpass a 4-star universe god, even if Wushuang reaches the 9th tribulation or becomes a universe god, he still wouldn't be a match for Shilu. Wu Li sighed and shook his head. It wasn't that he didn't believe in Jian Wushuang. It was just that Shilu's strength was too formidable. The glimmer of hope in everyone's despair gradually dimmed. They couldn't bear to look at the crystal ball any longer. This scene was seen by the Great Realm King, who was peeking through a wooden door at the crowd, reminded of his own past despair. He could feel that Shilu's aura was nearly on par with his own, comparable to Zamasu. However, Zamasu was a future Realm King god and would continue to grow stronger. Now he was training in the starry sky. He would become even more powerful in the future, and surpassing him was just a matter of time. Shilu was someone Zamasu had brought from the southern spacetime. The Great Realm King couldn't intervene, because he was the Great Realm King, not a cultivator. If he took action, Zamasu would also send someone. Cuter in the central continent god territory had all returned. If he acted now, it would only plunge the northern spacetime into the clutches of evil. After taking a look, he could only place his hopes on Jian Wushuang. Meanwhile, the battle above the sea was extremely fierce. Countless light waves continuously bombarded Hu Qing. The future body was already shattered. This was the super future body, akin to Jian Wushuang's super ancient transformation. Once it couldn't be maintained, his combat strength would be halved instantly. He would be utterly unable to contend with Shilu. In fact, ever since Shilu became complete, Hu Qing had no chance of contending, just passively taking hits, just like how he had previously beaten Shilu. Impossible! Hu Qing clenched his fists, blood oozing from his eyes. This battle had completely broken him. Shilu still had a calm demeanor, looking at Hu Qing with one hand on his hip. It seems you are satisfied. I did not disappoint you. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed and he was already in front of Hu Qing. Hu Qing's eyes widened, but before he could move, he felt a chill in his chest. Shilu's hand turned into a blade, shattering Hu Qing's divine body with a single strike. Crack! Even his origin source began to wither. At this moment, Hu Qing, let alone making a move, couldn't even maintain consciousness. He started falling from the sky, unable to even fly. A newly ascended universe god was about to fall? Hu Qing's hands reached out as he fell from the sky. Witnessing this, Wu Zhuo and the others gasped. It was over. Hu Qing was going to fall. Ah! Wu Li gasped. Even though they were prepared and knew that Hu Qing would likely fall, seeing it with their own eyes still shook them to their core. Divine Wood King and Wu Li handled it better. Blue merely closed his eyes in silence. But Wu Zhuo was the most shaken. His relationship with Hu Qing wasn't as deep as Jian Wushuang's, but he had watched Hu Qing grow up, from a young monk in white robes to a universe god. Their friendship spanned millions of years. The brilliance inside Qixin Temple, the severed bonds with his apprentice, merging with Jian Wushuang at the height of his power, achieving an invincible form. All these moments seemed like they had just happened yesterday. Hu Qing. Wu's eyes turned red. Sigh. Wu Li sighed. If Hu Qing falls like this, how will we explain it to Wushuang when he returns? Hearing this, Divine Wood King's eyes widened, and he roared angrily, Explain? Who do we owe explanations to when we venture out? At worst, I'll fall with him. Even if I die, I will die at the peak of my power. I will become a universe god. I will succeed. With that, Divine Wood King walked towards time. The rest fell silent. Above the sea, Shilu watched everything. Everything was in his hands. That feeling was wonderful. The falling Hu Qing had lost consciousness. Only a sliver of life remaining. Even if Shilu didn't strike, Hu Qing wouldn't survive for 3 days. Seeing his opponent unconscious, Shilu stopped wasting time and prepared to deliver the final blow to Hu Qing. A finger pointed out. The beam of light shot towards Hu Qing below. But just then, an old man wearing a mask appeared out of nowhere. With a casual wave, he redirected the beam. Who are you? Shilu's brow twitched, and a hint of fear surfaced in his heart. He was in his complete form now. Few could make him feel fear. Even in the star field of the gods. Only the great Realm King gods, or some ancient time-space gods could threaten him. But he had a background too. The Realm King of the southern spacetime and Zamasu. In the star field of the gods, few dared to challenge him. Shilu, I know why you are here. Why not wait for 3 days? Jian Wushuang will come to face you then. And if I refuse? Shilu's eyes were icy. It wasn't about time but pride. Why should he back down? He was in his complete form. You can try. The mysterious masked man extended a hand. Shilu frowned, hesitant to make a move. At that moment, a voice entered his mind. Agree to it. The voice was familiar to Shilu. It was the Realm King of the southern spacetime. Fine. Remember your words. Shilu decided to heed the Southern Realm King's advice. But it wasn't out of respect for the Southern Realm King. He realized that if the Southern Realm King bowed his head, he would only offend both sides if he acted tough. The mysterious masked man said nothing more. With a single hand, he grabbed Hu Qing. Just like when he arrived, he appeared out of nowhere. Then he vanished into thin air. Simply put, Shilu couldn't accomplish such a feat. He took a deep breath and didn't linger at the original spot. 3 days. Jian Wushuang personally came to confront him. No matter how much Jian Wushuang could grow in these 3 days, preparations had to be made. 3 days, how interesting. I want to see how strong you all can become. With a move, Shilu flew toward the transformed Jialong Mountain. Outside Northern City, Shilu landed in a relatively desolate area and constructed a massive arena. It was 10,000 miles in size. The surrounding spacetime was altered by him, imposing restrictions. Only 2 people could enter at a time. This was his preparation. Then he closed his eyes and waited for the battle in 3 days. Every second was precious, even for Jian Wushuang in the origin source of the starry sky. At this moment, Jian Wushuang had already challenged the 9 Tribulation Tower over 20 times. His origin source was becoming increasingly powerful. Now, within his origin source starry sky, there were already 3 miniature spacetime rivers. Each spacetime river contained 9 universes. The 3 spacetime rivers were aligned in a row. They seemed to be on the verge of merging. Phew! Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged outside the Tribulation Tower, exhaling deeply. Since entering this place, he hadn't dared to stop. Now, he had finally reached the peak of the 8th Tribulation, preparing to face the 9th Tribulation. It was the most significant tribulation in the Tribulation realm, because the divine tribulation was already considered a requirement for the universe god. However, Jian Wushuang's 9th Tribulation for an ordinary practitioner was even more terrifying than the divine tribulation. One chaotic law rule after another descended, baptizing his divine body. Not only did it baptize his divine body, but also his origin source. Jian Wushuang had already fused his divine body with his origin source. The divine body itself was 36 ultimate universes. The 36 universes of his origin source were also his divine body. As long as the universes remained unbroken, his divine body was indestructible. Come together. Jian Wushuang slightly raised his head, staring at the 9th Tribulation above. This was no longer the highest law rule of the starry sky, but a calamity from chaos. Ha! His divine power suddenly erupted. In an instant, it surpassed 100 million. After the complete fusion of his origin source and divine body, the amplification became even more perfect. In the 8th Tribulation realm, his divine power surpassed 100 million. Throughout history, he was the only one. Entering the Academy of the Gods was within reach. Moreover, Jian Wushuang had confidence in becoming a god, so why would he want to go to the Academy of the Gods? Just for that background? Ridiculous. What Xianxia had said back then only seemed laughable to him now. As the chaotic tribulation descended, Jian Wushuang's divine body and origin source changed once more. The power beyond the law rules baptized him. 99 times, each time enough to kill a demigod. But with each baptism, his divine power increased significantly. After 99 baptisms, his divine power had surpassed 100 million. The base divine power he had left was an astounding 60 million. This wasn't the amplified divine body. The 9 tribulations are over. Jian Wushuang couldn't hide the excitement in his eyes. Even the starry sky's divine power didn't need replenishing. Now is the beginning of my rise to the peak. He immediately took out the beast god weapon. Reaching the 9th Tribulation realm, he could finally use the beast god weapon. Moreover, the super ancient transformation needed to be enhanced. The beast god's power contained the chaotic origin source of the realm beast. His own power was starry sky divine power, and the two merged. Just like the starry sky within chaos. This was the ultimate ancient transformation. However, the first form of the beast god weapon must be activated before I can create the second layer of the super ancient transformation. Within the origin source starry sky, Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged in the void, surrounded by the power of the beast god. Blue and pink gradually blended together. A terrifying force was also brewing. The blue and pink ultimately formed a dark red color. He suddenly opened his eyes. It worked! At this moment, Jian Wushuang's eyes were entirely dark red. With a movement of divine power, he clenched his fists tightly. Super eternal ancient transformation. Swish! Without any delay, the transformation was instantly deployed. But initially, when he first mastered it, he needed to gather divine power to be able to perform the super eternal ancient transformation. Next is the ultimate ancient transformation. Buzz! Jian Wushuang shouted angrily. Ha! Divine power surged. Dark red divine power rose up, arcs of electricity flickered, and he bathed in it. The divine power reached an exaggerated level, coupled with the first layer of the beast god weapon. and the previous augmentation of the super-eternal ancient transformation. Now, he was already considered a quasi-5-star universe god. First, the basic divine power was 60 million. The tribulation armor transformed into the 9th tribulation armor, increasing it by 10 million. The first layer of the beast god weapon required 50 million divine power, which also amplified his divine power by 50 million. This made it 120 million, which is the combat power of a 1-star universe god. The key was still the augmentation of the ancient transformation. The super-eternal ancient transformation doubled it. That made it 240 million divine power. The ultimate ancient transformation doubled it again. Divine power directly skyrocketed to 480 million. This was already the combat power of a quasi-5-star universe god. He also had the selfless state technique. The white aura merely drifted a little, yet it allowed him to contend with a quasi-6-star universe god. There was also the starry sky record, and his swordsmanship could now maintain the 6th sword. Even a 6-star universe god, he had the confidence to kill. It's time to leave. Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed. The original path he might not have taken. So, there was no hurry for the divine tribulation, it still needed some time. This time span was very long. With his current strength, it was enough to go out and deal with Xilu. With a light finger point, the space-time was torn apart. Swish! Entering the crack, the next moment he appeared inside the time chamber. Great Realm King Sr. At this time, Jian Wushuang had returned to his normal state, with only 60 million basic divine power. In the 9th tribulation realm, this was not considered remarkable, just a strong half-god. So fast! The Great Realm King was a bit surprised. He thought Jian Wushuang would stay for a long time. Mainly, Jian Wushuang was worried about changes in the outside world. So he didn't enter the 4th-level tower. Nor did he do much research before coming out. Jian Wushuang directly spoke the truth after hearing this. 4th-level tower? Hearing that there was another tower, the Great Realm King couldn't stand still. He widened his eyes and exclaimed, "How is it possible, in the origin of the starry sky, there's only a 9 tribulation tower left by the Great Star Official? There's no such thing as a 4th-level tower. To be precise, there are 5 levels." Jian Wushuang was somewhat uncertain. 1st-level universe god, 2nd-level space-time god, 3rd-level starry sky, 4th-level chaos. The 5th level has no name. To verify, the Great Realm King directly tore space and took the initiative to go to the origin of the starry sky. Jian Wushuang naturally followed. But when he arrived, he found that the tower had disappeared, came out of nowhere, and vanished into thin air. It was just here. Jian Wushuang was a bit bewildered. He had no reason to lie. Seeing it meant he saw it. The Great Realm King took a deep look at him, took a deep breath. "Perhaps that is your destiny." Ah! This time, Jian Wushuang couldn't stand it. His unique opportunity was missed. Such a loss. Don't lament. What's yours is yours. This is the starry sky. A place of low rules, not chaos. The Great Realm King consoled him. However, he was secretly amazed at Jian Wushuang's opportunity. Something even he had never heard of. The 9 Tribulation Tower was meant for the prodigies of the Starry Sky's power. It was a treasure personally placed in the Starry Sky origin by the Great Star Officer. To receive this reward was already quite remarkable. Unexpectedly, Jian Wushuang could even see the mysterious tower. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He was actually fine. His battle strength had increased tremendously this time. He was ready to face anything. By the way, Xilu has already become complete. Now you? The Great Realm King glanced at Jian Wushuang, feeling a bit uneasy. He could naturally see that Jian Wushuang's aura had changed a lot, but his base divine power was only 60 million. Even if it doubled, he would only be a 1-star universe god, which was far behind the current Xilu. Jian Wushuang naturally understood the Great Realm King's concern. He slightly clenched his fists. Complete form, huh? Then let's senior witness whether I or Xilu is stronger. Ha! Jian Wushuang shouted angrily. He directly unleashed the ultimate ancient transformation. The chaotic power from the convergence of the starry sky origin and the beast god origin surged instantly. Ultimate ancient transformation. His divine power instantly reached the level of a quasi-5-star universe god. Additionally, there was the support of the perfect self-intention technique, although this boost was invisible and intangible, only manifesting in battle. The powerful force spread around. Even the great realm king's pupils involuntarily reversed, marveling. Your strength has improved rapidly, but compared to the current Shilu, you might still be a bit lacking. Well, that makes it more interesting. Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently. If Shilu was too weak, it would be less fun. He had promised the prophet to take Shilu's life. Initially, he thought it was a simple matter, but it turned out to be so complicated. Moreover, Shilu's growth was astonishing. The first time they met was in the northern spacetime, and back then, Shilu had 9th tribulation strength after gaining consciousness in the northern spacetime. After reaching the Realm King continent, Shilu's growth surpassed them all. He was stronger than a quasi-5-star universe god. At least he was a peak expert among 5-star universe gods, or even a quasi-6-star or 6-star universe god. Senior, if there's nothing else, I'll head out first. He still had to visit the prophet and then deal with Shilu. The great realm king nodded and said, "Go ahead. You still have a day left for the agreed time with the prophet. Shilu is waiting for you at Zilong Mountain." Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised by these words but didn't ask further. He then walked out of the time chamber. On the island, seeing him emerge from the time chamber, everyone stood up. The last one to enter the time chamber was Wuxia. The others had already enhanced their strength. They were all waiting outside now. "Wushuang, you finally came out." Wu Li's face was somewhat grim because Hu Qing's fate was unknown. Earlier, he had been taken away by the prophet, and there had been no news since. Jian Wushuang noticed Hu Qing's absence and asked, "Where's Hu Qing?" "Well, you should ask the prophet. He was severely injured by Shilu and then taken away by the prophet." "Let's not talk about that now. How's your strength? Can you defeat the current Shilu?" They were more concerned about this. The pressure Shilu exerted was too great. Jian Wushuang shook his head at this question. "I haven't seen Shilu's complete form yet, so I'm not sure." Even the great realm king said his chances of winning were slim, so he didn't dare to exaggerate. "If it doesn't work out, we'll all go together." Wu Li gritted his teeth and said, "It's a pity I couldn't become a universe god. I only created a mysterious method for universe gods under the guidance of the great realm king, and my divine power is that of a 1-star universe god. That's already very good." Jian Wushuang consoled him. He didn't expect much from Wu Li and the others. Shilu was targeting him, and he had to deal with it himself. Wu Li and the others briefly explained some previous events. Hearing that Hu Qing almost perished, Jian Wushuang frowned, not expecting it to be so serious. As for Hu Qing's arrogance, he didn't mind. Personality changes were normal. Allowing Shilu to become complete wasn't Hu Qing's fault. "I'll go see Shilu's complete form first." Jian Wushuang casually tore through space. He didn't even need the artifact phantom space to assist him. Everyone couldn't help but gasp at this sight. This was the great realm king's territory, where spacetime was more stable. Jian Wushuang casually tore it apart. This was not done using divine power, but through his realm. Now, Jian Wushuang was just one step away from reaching the complete spacetime river. Spacetime had already reached its peak level. As long as it was spacetime, no matter how solid, he could tear it apart. Just like the spacetime canyon back then, now he could create one as well. But it was no longer significant. Ordinary treasures no longer caught his eye. Despite this, everyone still reminded him, "Be careful. Shilu is very formidable." "No worries." Jian Wushuang nodded slightly and disappeared from everyone's sight with a flicker of his figure. When he reappeared, he was already outside the northern city of Zilong Mountain Town. He landed on the platform set up by Shilu, and the two stood back to back. "Shilu, Jian Wushuang." They only called each other's names softly and did not say anything more, but a powerful mental force was entangling. They wanted to compete to see who was superior. Jian Wushuang slightly furrowed his brows and chuckled. Let's go. After saying this, he disappeared again. Interesting. Shilu's lips curled up. He could roughly gauge Jian Wushuang's strength from the recent confrontation. 5-star universe god. Compared to Shilu, that was still not enough. Swoosh. Jian Wushuang returned to the Great Realm King's Island, and everyone looked over curiously. They wanted to know the answer in his heart. It should be about the same. This was Jian Wushuang's estimate. Shilu's strength had indeed given him a surprise. It was actually that powerful. Stronger than his Thogot power. In terms of divine power, he was definitely stronger. The regular state Shilu just now already had the combat power of a 5-star universe god. At his peak, he might be around 7-star. It was indeed very pressuring. No worries, you still have one day. You can still improve. Forget it. Jian Wushuang shook his head. He didn't plan to go into seclusion again because it was unnecessary. He still needed to visit the prophet. Seclusion wouldn't make it in time, and besides, he had improved all he could. The remaining divine tribulations required a long time to accumulate, which could not be achieved in a short period. I'll go visit the prophet. You can return to the Immortal Temple. Shilu won't bother you for the time being. There was no point in staying here anymore. This time, the Great Realm King helped them because of the Northern Realm King. Without the threat of Shilu, they wouldn't receive any help in improving their strength. Everything still needed to proceed step by step. After explaining everything, he rose and flew towards the residence of the prophet. In the time it took to burn an incense stick, he arrived at the grand hall where the prophet resided. As he landed, he saw the prophet already waiting for him. Seer, Jian Wushuang greeted respectfully. He admired the prophet immensely and had always received his help, especially in the forging of the beast god weapon, where he was guided on the fusion of starry sky power with beast god power. The prophet had shown him immense kindness. Now he had saved Hu Qing and stabilized Shilu. It seems you have mastered the beast god weapon. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded and said, I have always remembered your words, and I came to find you immediately after my breakthrough. And about Shilu, thank you very much. The prophet waved his hand and said, These are small matters. The significant issue is that you have mastered the beast god weapon. Additionally, your proficiency with the power of disorder has increased significantly. In the future, you might be able to barely survive in the land of chaos. The land of chaos? Jian Wushuang was startled. He hadn't expected the prophet to mention the land of chaos, which was outside spacetime. There were no rules there, and powerful demonic beasts ruled, each staking their territory. It was extremely chaotic. The starry sky had always coexisted peacefully with the land of chaos. Even if there was an invasion, they only defended and never took the initiative. There was no need for it. If you hit them, they wouldn't be affected at all. Instead, you might hurt yourself. It was very passive. Yet, the prophet's words seemed to suggest he should go to the land of chaos. This confused Jian Wushuang. You will understand in the future. For now, I have something to give you after mastering the beast god weapon. This item is related to your tribulation armor. The prophet took out a blue bead. Related to the tribulation armor? Jian Wushuang was shocked. The tribulation armor was obtained from the heavenly chessboard. The heavenly chessboard was given to him by teacher Xianxia, meaning the tribulation armor was related to teacher Xianxia. The prophet even knew about this. Senior, do you know teacher Xianxia? Jian Wushuang asked excitedly. Could it be that teacher Xianxia sent you to help me? The prophet vaguely replied. More or less. Then, can you tell me how to find teacher Xianxia? Jian Wushuang had many doubts. He kept seeking the source of the world, but never found teacher Xianxia's whereabouts. Finally, he had some clues. Didn't he tell you? The prophet smiled. He should have mentioned you would meet in the future. It shouldn't be far off. He knew even this? Jian Wushuang was completely stunned. He hadn't expected the prophet to know so much. He began to suspect the prophet's identity. To be able to predict so accurately, teacher Xianxia might indeed be a god in the starry sky, and a very powerful one at that. Yet, He hadn't seen teacher Xianyi's name on the boundary stone monument. Perhaps teacher Xianyi wasn't his real name. The temple master, Xianyi, of Qishan Temple had said he had borrowed teacher Xianyi's name. Then who could he be? The 12 star spirits? Given teacher Xianyi's mysteriousness, it was highly possible. Or perhaps teacher Xianyi was the great star officer himself. Stop guessing. Some things you can only understand when your strength is sufficient. Otherwise, knowing now wouldn't help. It's like you and the universe masters of northern spacetime. The gap is too large. You wouldn't be of help and would be a burden instead. Jian Wushuang nodded silently. The tribulation armor. He took out the tribulation armor and handed it to the prophet. This was forged from the skysite heavenly chessboard left by teacher Xianyi. The chessboard is divided into two parts. One condensed into the heavenly bead, and the other is this tribulation armor. Only then did he notice the bead in the prophet's hand. Recalling Hu Qing's rescue, he realized, Senior, did you extract Hu Qing's heavenly bead? That was Hu Qing's key treasure. Extracting it would cripple him. Yes, this heavenly bead was originally meant for you, but because your path changed, the bead ended up with Hu Qing. This tribulation armor and the bead are one. Since you've gifted it, you should go all the way. All right, in that case, I'll give the tribulation armor to Hu Qing as well. Jian Wushuang didn't mind. After all, an extra 10 million divine power meant nothing to him now. The prophet chuckled. You are generous, giving away such treasures. Do you know its purpose? I don't know. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Initially, he thought the tribulation armor had no connection to the heavenly bead and separated them, giving the bead to Hu Qing. The tribulation armor simply amplified his basic divine power. It was quite a magical treasure. Now, it had transformed into divine armor, even more extraordinary. But it was of little use to him, unless it could transform again when he reached Universe God. Since it's already given to Hu Qing, I won't explain it to you. I'll accept this treasure, and of course, I won't let you suffer any loss. There are even better treasures to give you, the prophet said, taking out a red-marked eye from his bosom. Chaotic power emanated from it. When Jian Wushuang saw the eye, his heart trembled. This power was too terrifying. It was very similar to the chaotic power he had fused with the starry sky's power. It had the potential to destroy the heavens and the earth. Moreover, he sensed a force originating from the origin source. It was the source of chaos. No, this is just the source of the beast god's power. Good eye. This was left behind by a realm beast that entered the starry sky, just one of its eyes, the prophet said casually, throwing the red eye to Jian Wushuang. Realm beasts were chaotic beings stronger than demons. They had a single eye, were hideous in appearance but extremely powerful. There were even fewer recorded realm beasts. The prophet said it was a realm beast that entered the starry sky, meaning it had the strength to traverse the long river of time and space and shatter the Realm King continent. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to enter the starry sky. If the starry sky were compared to a house, the 4 great spacetimes would be the 4 walls, and the Realm King continent would be the roof. Most of the recorded realm beasts were killed by the Realm King before they got close to the spacetimes. The stronger ones entered the Realm King continent and were killed by the Great Realm King or powerful star spirits. It was the first time Jian Wushuang heard of one that could enter the starry sky. The prophet added, that realm beast left this eye and then escaped. It was extremely powerful, capable of shattering the entire Realm King continent with one punch. Jian Wushuang broke into a cold sweat upon hearing this. Capable of shattering the Realm King continent with one punch? How strong must it be? Even Weiss power might not be this terrifying. He ventured into the starry sky and managed to return unscathed. The 12 star spirits were mere decorations? He actually escaped? The great star official of the starry sky had ventured into the land of chaos. It was an ambush. Weiss from the 12 star spirits intervened, took the beast's eye, but the beast still managed to escape. Back then, Weiss had fought the beast and had only slightly bested it, driving it away. In his own domain, he couldn't capture the beast. And these were the 12 star spirits. the 12 strongest beings in the starry sky. Cultivators could almost be certain they could never surpass them. The strongest cultivators were like Xingyu. Becoming a star spirit envoy or a realm king god was the peak. The number of great realm kings was few, comparable to the number of star spirits. That beast managed to slip away from Weiss, leaving behind only one eye. Jian Wushuang carefully observed, his heart shaken. He dared not directly comprehend it. This is the beast's eye. You can attach it to the beast god weapon. It will elevate the weapon's origin source, making it a supreme treasure. To Jian Wushuang, the prophet's words seemed too modest. This blood-red eye was a supreme treasure for anyone. Even a ninth tribulation universe god would drool over it. Jian Wushuang swallowed hard, then wrapped it with his mental power and threw it into the beast god origin source, starting the integration. Wow! He felt a tremor throughout his body. The dark red power burst forth again. It even suppressed his starry sky power. The dark red turned into a peach pink. Buzz! Jian Wushuang clenched his fist, feeling his divine power surge uncontrollably. His divine power instantly broke through 100 million. It only stopped at the peak. Now, without using super ancient eternal transformation, he had 150 million divine power. Using super eternal ancient transformation, he reached 3 stars. Using ultimate ancient transformation, he reached 6 stars. He also had the extreme freedom intent technique. 7-star universe god. He could fight. A mark appeared on Jian Wushuang's forehead. Blood red. Now, compared to Silu, the gap isn't that big anymore. The prophet nodded calmly. But Jian Wushuang was full of confidence. Even if the prophet still thought there was a gap between him and Silu, he still believed he had a chance to win. I will definitely accomplish the task given by the senior, to slay Silu. Wait for Hu Qing. He should be out soon. Jian Wushuang nodded. A day passed quickly. Before dawn, Hu Qing emerged. His entire demeanor had changed. Wearing a black robe, his gaze cold. When he saw Jian Wushuang, he only smiled faintly. Let's go. The prophet was eager to witness this battle. Jian Wushuang and Hu Qing nodded simultaneously. Then they looked at each other and flew towards the long mountain. Passing through the star field of the gods, they reached outside Northern City. This time, they didn't tear through space, they simply flew there. Upon arrival, they found Wuxia and his group had also come. Everyone looked at each other without saying much. Silu, seeing so many people, was extremely excited. He even set the rules. An arena battle 1-on-1. Falling off the stage or dying meant losing. How about it? Satisfied? Silu spread his hands, looking at everyone. Jian Wushuang appeared casual, calmly saying, "Of course. Why don't you and Hu Qing go together?" Wuxia couldn't help but suggest. He saw that Hu Qing and Jian Wushuang's strengths were similar, but neither was as terrifying as Silu. It would be best to fight together to ensure safety. No need, I can win. Jian Wushuang was extremely confident. Seeing his confidence, Wuxia stopped persuading. The sense of determination spread. Clack. Jian Wushuang stepped onto the stage, slowly raising his hand. Let's begin. I originally wanted to save the best for last. But you're too eager, Jian Wushuang. Silu's expression changed, and he attacked like lightning. But Jian Wushuang was not slow, lightly tapping the ground with his toes and leaping into the air. He gathered a strong light with both hands, paralyzing Silu below. But it only lasted for a moment. The strong light began to dissipate. Their figures flashed continuously, engaging in combat in the air. Thudding sounds made the surrounding restrictions tremble. The world shook with them. Their divine powers kept increasing. Jian Wushuang indifferently said, "Once the sword is out of its sheath, there is no turning back. Don't let my preparation go to waste." Silu completely disregarded Jian Wushuang. He glanced at the 10,000 Tribulations sword, revealing a cold smile. The sword contained the intent of only a quasi-8 star. Even if he stood still, a strike wouldn't harm him. "Come on. I'll stand here and see what your sword can do to me." Facing the arrogant Shilu, Jian Wushuang remained unmoved. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. The tribulation sword hummed. Swish! With a slight raise of his hand, the tribulation sword slashed. An ordinary streak of sword energy burst forth. Everyone was stunned, thinking Jian Wushuang had lost his mind. How could such a simple sword energy possibly harm Shilu? But the sword light within the sword energy suddenly erupted. Starry Sky Chronicles, 6th Sword Move. Jian Wushuang murmured softly, his gaze shifting, and his entire aura turned sharp. Eternal Combat. Boom! The originally narrow sword energy instantly transformed into sword light. It covered the entire star field of the gods. At this moment, even the supreme law rules couldn't help but tremble. The powerful aura resonated with heaven and earth. Blood trickled from Jian Wushuang's 7 orifices. His divine power was instantly drained. All the origin source power within him converged into the sword light. He collapsed. The force was controlled perfectly, neither killing him nor failing to let this sword be displayed in its perfect form. Under the illumination of the sword light, Shilu's heart tightened, not expecting Jian Wushuang to have such a trump card. A terrifying sword light. It was enough to shake his mind, making it impossible to face directly. Today, I will make you despair. Facing the sword light, Shilu opened his hands and clamped down hard. He wanted to break the sword light with his hands. But the moment he touched the sword light, he found his divine power instantly diminished. A terrifying aura was devouring his power. How is this possible? Shilu's face was shocked. He dared not continue to confront it head-on. Gathering powerful divine power in his hands, he tried to shatter the sword light. But when the beams of light from his hands were split into 2 segments, he was dumbfounded. The speed of the sword light suddenly increased. No longer giving Shilu a chance to breathe, the light and shadow slashed instantly. Shilu's figure gradually split within the light. His eyeballs burst. His body shattered. Even his divine body trembled. No, you can't kill me. Shilu struggled within the sword light. But Jian Wushuang had no strength left to add. The attacking sword light also gradually dimmed. Shilu's face lit up with joy, thinking he could withstand it. The sword light weakened, and his pressure lessened. His body gradually recovered. With a fierce push of his hands, he blocked the weakening sword light. It's over, everyone. This battle was exhilarating, and also very dangerous. Anyway, the fight was exhilarating, and finally everyone was killed. It was perfect. Just as he relaxed, the sword light suddenly surged again. How is this possible? Shilu was shocked. Turning his head, he saw that it was Hu Qing. It wasn't just Hu Qing. There was also Wuxia, Wu Li, Blue, and Divine Wood King. They raised their hands, channeling all their power into this one strike. They wielded the sword on behalf of Jian Wushuang. The power of the sword light surged to its peak again. Shilu couldn't withstand it anymore. His entire body was engulfed by the sword light, gradually disintegrating. Eventually, nothing remained. Even his aura disappeared into the air. Most of the Zhalong mountain territory was destroyed. Everyone lay sprawled on the ground. Only Hu Qing could barely stand, using his hand to suppress the chaotic storm within his origin source. He revealed a faint smile. We won. As twilight faded, a ray of sunlight fell on the barren ground. I knew they could do it. The Northern Realm King, watching the scene, couldn't help but cheer. The Great Realm King was equally excited. Jian Wushuang, lying on the ground, squinted as he watched the sun slowly rise. But before he could smile, his gaze froze. Instead of cheering, he saw Jian Wushuang turning into stone. And he was already shattered. Jian Wushuang. Wus were rushed forward, gently touching the stones. Took him a long time to accept this fact. Jian Wushuang had fallen. He had exhausted his divine power and fallen. Outside Zhalong Mountain, after a few days of calm, Wuxia and the others took Jian Wushuang's stone body back to Northern Town. They did not go to the star field of the gods. Everyone remained silent. Hu Qing went alone to the star field of the gods, seeking the prophet. But he discovered that among the gods, no one knew of the prophet's existence. Only Dan Bao knew. Moreover, the great realm king said that the position of the prophet never existed in the star field of the gods. Ultimately, he returned to Northern Town in despair. After a few days of dejection, Dan Bao brought a message that made everyone breathe a sigh of relief. Jian Wushuang had fallen, but not completely. Now, they needed to find 7 origin sources to restore Jian Wushuang's physical body. Once his body was restored, Jian Wushuang could be resurrected. Upon hearing this, Hu Qing immediately set out on the path to find the origin sources. Wu Zhuo and the others were not idle either. Everyone split up. They began their adventure on the Realm King continent. Along the way, many things would happen. There would also be many opportunities. It was a form of compensation, because Jian Wushuang had gained more benefits. In the Realm King Divine Realm, on a small green planet, only 10 miles in diameter, Jian Wushuang lay sleeping on the grass. This was the Northern Realm King's domain. His consciousness first reached the prophet, then he was enlightened and gained the ability to create a consciousness avatar. Then he was sent to the Northern Realm King. This was the greatest benefit. With a consciousness avatar, it was as if he hadn't died. He even had his original divine power. He just couldn't leave the Realm King Divine Realm. Here he could still cultivate. It didn't delay anything. Jian Wushuang, wake up. I have good news for you. I've fallen. Can't I have a good sleep? Jian Wushuang turned over. He lay on the grass, not wanting to move at all. He had completely lost the motivation to cultivate. He just wanted to rest for a while. Now he felt no pressure. He had let go of a lot. Since time was infinite, why rush? It was better to take it step by step. Ahem! The Northern Realm King coughed and said, "Listen carefully. There is a way to revive you now, and I've already told Hu Qing and the others. It won't be long before you can leave the Realm King Divine Realm." So what? Jian Wushuang didn't care at all. He actually liked it here. It was better to cultivate here without anyone disturbing him. He was tired of fighting, especially the schemes. This time, being manipulated by the prophet made him very upset. Although the prophet had no ill intentions towards him, the journey had been exhausting. Moreover, he didn't like being controlled. He wanted to control his own fate. "All right, since you don't care, I'll go see the great Realm King alone," the Realm King said, ready to leave. When Jian Wushuang heard Great Realm King, his eyes lit up, and he stood up immediately. The Great Realm King? This was the being who had created the Realm King continent. Even this Realm King Divine Realm was created by that being. The Realm King God Realm was a world where consciousnesses coexisted. In simple terms, physical bodies could not enter this place. Only the consciousness of a fallen universe god or a spacetime god would be guided into the Realm King God Realm. Moreover, only the powerful universe gods or those with extraordinary backgrounds were guided here. Their consciousnesses were brought here to queue for rebirth. This rebirth could retain their memories. However, to awaken those memories, they would have to cultivate back to the level of a universe god. This was quite difficult, because after rebirth, their fortune might change. If they were unlucky and died prematurely, they wouldn't be able to enter the Realm King God Realm in their next life. The risk was enormous. So, many universe gods chose not to undergo rebirth and remained in the Realm King God Realm. Of course, there was always a sliver of hope in every situation. The consciousnesses of the universe gods that stayed behind could take on tasks to accumulate fortune for their next life. Those with extraordinary fortune might be reborn directly into the giant god clan. Starting as a universe master, with casual cultivation, they could return to their clan and become an 8th tribulation or even a 9th tribulation universe master. Very close to becoming a universe god. The key was safety. The giant god clan dominated the starry sky. The star spirits didn't interfere with cultivators' interests. What remained were the families of the star spirit envoys. They were the true overlords of the starry sky. And the giant god clan had 6 star spirit envoys. One of the Star Spirit envoys was even under the command of the Great Star Officer. Such a powerful clan that no one dared to provoke. Everyone dreamed of being reborn into the giant god clan. Jian Wushuang, however, was indifferent to these things. He was different from the other guided consciousnesses. When those guided consciousnesses fell, their consciousness directly entered here. Only in the realm King God realm could they maintain their divine power from when they were alive. Moreover, their consciousness could not cultivate. Jian Wushuang was different. He could manipulate divine power with his consciousness even when he was in the outside world. After arriving here, he could continue to cultivate. There was no need for him to reincarnate. Hu Qing and the others would still rescue him. Unlike the other guided consciousnesses, he didn't have such tremendous pressure. For the first time, he felt a sense of superiority over his peers. In the past, he was always under immense pressure. But now, seeing others struggle desperately, he finally understood what it meant to live comfortably. It felt great. Originally, he planned to just muddle along here.